Thanks, everybody. I really wasn't nervous about this meeting until I pulled in the parking lot and couldn't find a parking spot. But welcome to the 4 p.m. joint work session of November 15th, 2022. Let the record reflect that all council members are present. I guess as you all have read in the newspaper, the purpose of our work session is it's for the council to conduct a fact-finding work session, but also for the public to fact-find alongside us. So we'll be hearing from the Ogden Community and Economic Development Director today and learning quite a few details, but I won't steal the thunder. I wanted to let the mayor, this is your proposal. Are you planning to do introductions today?
Sure, I appreciate that.
That was the memo I got.
It's a different work session than I'm typically used to,
yeah,
but I want to say we really appreciate everybody being here, and this is a really unique opportunity for us in our downtown. And I want to talk quickly about a couple of things I think are really important. And we've, for the last 3+ years, talked about this Make Ogden plan and what's going on with that. And what we want to start with is the why on the Make Ogden Downtown Master Plan. And it's been unfortunate that people say we don't do planning and we don't do some of that other stuff. I'm going to read through a handful of things that have been done as we look at what's going on in our downtown, and I think it's really important to recognize that. But very simply, we want to proactively develop a strategy to build on our existing assets, which I think most of us in this room recognize. Want to drive to infill development in downtown and enhance the overall quality of life for our residents, and to ensure economic sustainability for the city, which is critically important. I want to express appreciation for everyone that has been involved in the development of this plan. All of you on this dais have been involved in that. A lot of people in this room have been involved in that. I want to specifically call out a few people. Design Workshop has put more than 4,000 hours into plan development. Our city staff have put more than 3,500 hours into the planning process. And then the citizens and community leaders have put more than 1,000 hours of working through and supporting the community as we try to engage more feedback and get more people to be involved in this. This is not something that we want to create. This is something we want you to adopt and to be excited about. And we're very thrilled to be here. I want to thank a lot of our partners. We're going to talk about the winter block development, which is one of the key deliverables and one of the promises we've made to make downtown Ogden a vibrant, active, unique place. I think that we've all recognized that. I can tell you from my personal experience, 10 to 20 years in this process of working through creating a placemaking environment, somewhere people feel safe, where they want to go, where they want to engage and feel a sense of inspiration and everything else. This has been a huge deal for us in my entire almost 11 years in this position. So I want to thank a lot of the people that have put so much time and energy into this. It gets said a little bit, but I don't know if it gets resonated enough that this is a generational opportunity. Have a huge block in our downtown core where we can do something really unique and visionary, or we can just kind of lean on a fear-based approach to this, and that's not something I want to do. I love what we have collectively accomplished in the last number of years in Ogden and the change of our reputation and everything else that's happened here. And this is signature to what we think can happen next. I want to express our appreciation for everyone that has been involved in the development of this winter block project. As I mentioned earlier, all of you have been involved in that. So many of you have been involved in this. But I want to call out a handful of really key people. I want to say thank you to the Jeff Fisher companies. I know a handful of them are here. I want to appreciate Mark and Mara and Lisa Stout and Gary Williams. And I'll read their titles. I understand some of you don't know who some of these people are. So J.F. Fisher Companies is the major developer that's coming into this. Mark Johnson, next to me here, is our CAO. Mara Brown's our Management Services Director. Lisa Stout, our Finance Manager. Gary Williams, our City Attorney. Brandy Johnson, our Treasurer. James Tanner, Assistant City Attorney. Sarah Meese, our Business Development Manager. David Sawyer, Deputy Business Development Manager. Damon Burnham, Redevelopment Manager. Mel Smith, our Legal Counsel. Brightest mind in the room most of the time. Laura Lewis, Financial Advisor from Lewis Young. Nate Robertson, Lewis Young. Randy Larson, Bond Counsel from Gilmore Bell. Janine Eller-Smith, the Council Executive Director. Jeremiah Simpson from Kimberly Horn when it comes to parking and everything else. This has been an exhaustive study and approach from everybody in here because we do recognize that this will be one of the most important and unique developments. So we appreciate you all being here and being willing to lend your voices and your opinions and your thoughts as to how we move forward with this. One of the things we'll talk about out there later is the transportation and parking system. As most of you have known, and we've all felt, we have almost a $200 million BRT project going on through the heart of our downtown and up to Weber State and to the university. That is a generational project, and we're very excited about that. But how we put things and the pearls on that necklace along that line, I think, is very important. And I want to, again, appreciate our Economic Development Department for the long-range planning and everything that's gone into figuring this out. Part of what we'll talk about tonight is a parking program and how do we pay for that and how do we really embrace what's happening in our downtown. Some of that's going to be paid parking, no different than we've seen in a lot of different environments, but it's a conversation that we wanted to have with you all and to have a conversation about how we think that might work and how that will come together. And so what I really want to hope to accomplish tonight is how do we listen and work together? So there are a lot of big initiatives, a lot of big asks, and a number of other things. And our goal was to come to you all and say, here are our thoughts, here's what we've seen, here's what we're being told, here's what the studies are telling us, but we want to have your collective feedback in how we put some of this together and to move forward. So we would appreciate you all engaging in this process. It's encouraging to see the room full of people here tonight, hopefully with notes and thoughts and willingness to engage and to talk about that. So we really appreciate your efforts and willingness to be here and to engage in this. And so with that, I will turn time over to Brandon Cooper, our Economic Development Director. But again, thank you for the intro, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to say my gratitude and give my kudos to those that have worked so hard on this. And I thought it was important that we give a little bit of context to what's happened.
Perfect. Thank you for the intro. Brandon.
Chair, I was wondering, should we tell the audience what the format will be like?
Oh, sure.
Because it's a work session, but it's
Yeah.
in a weird location.
Actually, a couple of housekeeping things. I'm glad you said that. So we do have quite a few people that are participating online. So for council members and participants in the meeting, make sure we speak clearly and loudly in the mic. But also, as we mentioned before, this is sort of a fact-finding session for all of us today. The administration has gone through their process. They've kept us informed at key checkpoints along the way, but the council is just digesting all the details on our own as well. And so we'll be doing that alongside you guys tonight. This is an opportunity for Brandon to give us kind of the broad presentation all together at once. And then in about 45 minutes from now, since we started just a few minutes late due to technical issues, we'll give you about 45 minutes and then we'll step into the foyer area and we'll have opportunities to engage one-on-one, ask specific questions and get good answers from a number of different resource experts today. After that, we will then reconvene back into our normal closed session. We've just got some business we got to do in the other room related to our meeting at 6. At 6 o'clock, you'll see we've got a pretty long agenda. One of them has a bunch of planning items. Depending on how that one's handled, we might be able to move through that pretty quick. But we've also got to start to tee up some public hearings and decision points down the road that incorporate our public feedback up to that point. So hopefully that was clear for everybody. Brandon, I'll hand it off to you for the details.
Okay, thank you very much. And given the time that we have, this will be fairly quick and a general overview. We do have a number of informational items in the hallway as we break out in about 45 minutes. And we also have a number of resources online that we can provide web links to. And there'll be quite a few folks in the hallway that are knowledgeable about the project that can answer anybody's question. I just want to say thank you to the mayor. Your endorsement of these efforts means a lot to everybody, so I appreciate that, as does the team that's worked on this for so long. As the mayor said, we'll be talking about 3 individual items that are all generally connected. First, the Make Ogden Plan. Second, the Wonder Block Plan as a deliverable from the Make Ogden Plan, and the parking that's associated with development and Make Ogden, but also represents some of its own challenges and problems independently. We talked about, the mayor mentioned all the people that have worked on this project, both Make Ogden and Wonder Block. And we take that role and that job very serious as local government. And we feel like that it's important to state the reason, generally speaking, of the role of local government, and that is placemaking. We have the resources of the taxpayer money, and with that, we strive to reinvent the public spaces that we have in our community, and we strive to build the city's capacity for sustainable economic vitality. Everything that we are going to be talking about tonight are really associated with that purpose and that mission. A lot of folks have asked the question, well, how do we get here in certain circumstances? In this room, we've talked a lot about process and how we end up in certain decision points. And so I thought it would be important to talk about the authority in which we operate in terms of my staff and our team and government in general. We have been authorized via you as a council and councils before you to conduct these types of activities under the Ogden City General Plan. That's an adopted document that really guides a lot of these decisions that we undertake. From that general plan, there are 18 community plans, one of which is this Central Business District Plan, which is now the Downtown Make Ogden Plan. Those plans and studies also give us the authority to do work and to present proposals such as these. Associated with that and related to the RDA specifically is the Utah State Code 17C. That state code authorizes the redevelopment agency or the city acting as the redevelopment agency to undertake redevelopment plans specific to general neighborhoods. And in those plans come authority to make proposals and to make decisions. And so we're here under that authority as well. And then certainly the city administrative policy that governs us as city employees. So I just wanted to reinforce the fact that the authority that we have to be here together is granted to us all, and we're just doing exactly what we've been asked to do collectively. So what are we trying to solve? As we take that authority and look at the city and try to achieve those goals of placemaking, we come across certain dilemmas. I think we're signed out of the meeting. Does that mean we're over? Okay, great. So we've established the need for a comprehensive vision to guide the growth and development in the downtown in order to maintain and grow our tax base, which will improve the fiscal health of the city and allow us to return to the citizens the services and things that they need, such as recreational amenities, streets, parks, things that are generally the fundamental elements of a city. There's a tax base that's required to do that, and so we need a comprehensive vision that will drive that tax base. As our expenses outpace our revenue in terms of those taxes, there has to be value and density associated with development in our most dense areas, like a downtown, that will allow us to generate those revenues necessary to then provide those services. And so we asked the question, how do we strategically evolve in a very competitive environment when it comes to where folks choose to live in Utah? How do we evolve our downtown and take advantage of the assets that we have naturally? We have natural assets, historical assets, cultural assets. And how do we drive employment attraction, business growth, and all of the activity that's going to increase the value of our land and contribute to the long-term health of the community? So those are the questions that drove us to this point, and that's how the Make Ogden plan was created. The plan was adopted by you all as a council in December of 2020, and it's been the fundamental driving factor for the things that we're presenting today, as well as other decisions that are being made. It's really a roadmap for the next 25 years, specifically related to the downtown. It establishes a new standard of quality in the downtown. It establishes a new standard of density. It creates principles and ideas that will allow us to build on over time as development happens and potentially reach that thriving downtown environment that it envisions over its period of 25 years. Throughout the making of the document and the initiative, most of you all were part of that. It took almost 2 seasons. You can see some of the pictures here. These are pictures of our engagement that we undertook. There were multiple open houses. There were farmers market engagements. There was a trip to Denver to look at certain analogs that represented the values that we were seeking. We did surveys. We had over 1,000 respondents, as you can see there. So the Make Ogden plan is driven by the community's input. We're very proud of the efforts that were taken. We had one of the best consultants in all of the country helping us frame some of those interactions with Design Workshop. And so the Make Ogden is the result of that, and I think it's produced a wonderful plan. The lens in which Make Ogden looks through is based on these 6 tenets. We wanted to establish a framework in which all of the rest of Make Ogden was built from. And so we looked at how we deal with our land use as being a fundamental concept of driving value. What are the historic assets in the community? How do we protect them? How do we leverage them? What is our mobility situation? How do we not only create big mobility solutions like the BRT, but then little things like how do you get off the front runner and down to Washington Boulevard in a snowstorm, those kind of things. Accessibility is part of that. Open space is key, especially in the downtown area, making sure that we have the correct amount of open space, and that doesn't always mean a green, grassy lawn. It means places that people can gather and socialize and commune together. Certainly equity is a part of that as well, making sure that we have equality of opportunity across the whole downtown and it's accessible to everyone. And then, as the mayor mentioned, branding is a key important tenet because of some of the intra-local perspectives that people have of Ogden, as well as the competitive nature of some of the communities that are developing up around us. When it comes to the option of where you can live, especially in a remote work environment like we're now in today because of COVID, folks have the ability to, they're decoupled, so to speak, from where they work. They can live anywhere. And so we want to make Ogden the community of choice and continue that. And so a plan would be nothing without metrics. And as part of our 25-year vision for the downtown, in the Make Ogden plan, we've looked at these 4 metrics. So we seek to increase walkability by 38%. We seek to increase job density in the downtown by 92%. We seek to increase housing density by 476% and 175% increase in the taxable value per acre. So those are the metrics and the goals of the plan over the 25 years. We broke up the 25 years into episodic periods, and each episode has its own set of metrics, it has its own set of objectives, and it has its own set of standards and rules, so to speak. And it's broken up into 2 different sections, public investment and private development investment. And public investment is the thing that we have on our radar in terms of enhancing private development, as well as doing traditional public investment like roads and open space and things like that. And so from episode 1, Wonder Block was born. And as you know, Wonder Block is about a 5-acre site, which was home to the Continental Bakery for decades. It employed hundreds of people at one time, and in 2012, Hostess Bakery went out of business. They filed bankruptcy, and a company called Flowers Foods bought Hostess assets. Just so happened that the Continental Bakery site was redundant to their portfolio, and so they put it on the market, and we felt like having this type of asset in our downtown, it would be a shame, given all the goals and vision that we were thinking of, it would be a shame to have this convert back into a factory. It had a much higher and better use. So in 2016, the RDA purchased the site and commenced development, which you can see here in some of these pictures. One of the other key factors was this site's relationship to 25th Street. Out of all the things that we heard in the Make Ogden outreach, one of the most important and most vocal things that we heard was the nature of 25th Street, its importance, and the level of investment that the community would want to see from the city and others into 25th Street and the surrounding blocks to the north and to the south, as well as Union Station. And you'll see some of those numbers and some of that information out in the hall on the boards. But this was prevalent in the communication that we had from the community. And one of the problems with the site as it was originally oriented with Continental Bakery was this access behind 25th Street. If there are any 25th Street businesses here today, they'll know that that alleyway at the top of the screen there was really inaccessible for their use, even though the back of their stores or their businesses met up to that property line. They couldn't use it for trash pickup. They couldn't use it for utilities, parking, any of that. And so it was really a problem, and there really was a hard wall right there. And so part of what we envisioned to do is to solve that, and I'll show you in just a minute how that has worked out, and it's worked out wonderfully with our relationship with the state courts. So if you were to summarize Wonder Block in a narrative, I think this is what it would be. We're talking about more than just building buildings, and we've kind of summarized it in that last statement there, where the heart of Ogden's past meets the best of Ogden's future. This is the site plan, and again, more detail is on the website as well as out in the hall. But generally speaking, this covers about 5 acres, and it goes all the way up to the backside of 25th Street. That's the buildings on the top. You'll see a hotel at the top. That land is part of the state land that would be contributed by the state courts into this project, and a hotel is planned for that site. There on the left top, you see a new office building. That's about 100,000 square feet. And then as you go down south to 26th Street, those are mixed-use buildings that include retail, a grocery store, residential use, and a parking structure that would be public parking for public use. And I'll get to that in just a moment. Moving to the east, you'll see more residential houses or units, as well as the existing Brown Ice Cream Building, and a number of public amenities that snake their way through the project. And these were critical in our design program. We wanted to make sure that we had very good visual and pedestrian connection to the backside of 25th Street. And we wanted to make sure that we solved that issue of service along those businesses that front the north end of this project. So here are some of those numbers that I just mentioned in black and white. So again, 20,000 square foot grocery store, 50,000 square foot Class A office, 354 market rate units. The grocery store is very exciting in terms of being able to provide a much needed service for the downtown, especially as we grow those residential units by 476% over 25 years. So this is the site today. If you were to walk out to the corner of 26th and Grant, you'll see that the site's been clear for some time. And though it might look as if it's been fallow and forgotten, it has not. We've been working on this project, as the mayor said, for a number of years now. This is that same perspective looking northeast from Lincoln and 26th. And these buildings represent those uses that I just mentioned. That's the grocery store building there on the corner. That would be on the bottom level with residential units on the top. Here is looking down Grant Avenue. Again, this is a perspective where you see the white building on the upper right is the brown ice cream building, and that structure in the middle is the parking structure that would be incorporated, one of the two parking structures that would be incorporated. Here's some other perspectives, and I won't take much time on these. These pictures are in the hall, and we can talk about specifics. Again, programming and having that connection to 25th Street was really critical component of our design program, and so we've created spaces for people to gather, concerts, food trucks, those kind of things. This is that looking on the interior of the promenade with a accent wall that's meant to project digital art, so that has a daytime aesthetic as well as a nighttime aesthetic. And we feel like that's going to be a major draw for some of the events that we are having and could have in the future, as well as other programming elements. So we're excited about that. So what is the investment? That project, without the parking structures, is $188 million based on the design work and the costing that has happened in real time over the last year or so in terms of our efforts with our development partner, J. Fisher Companies. So that represents the true cost of the project. It does not require an increase to sales tax or property tax to the general public. This is all meant to be funded within the project itself, and I'll explain that in just a moment. Because this is a true partnership between this redevelopment agency and J. Fisher Companies, there will be an operating agreement that stipulates how the funds come into the project and how they are to be spent. You see there that the developer investment is $124 million. They will provide that through equity, which is cash, as well as debt. And then it is proposed to you all, as part of this, to bond for $64 million from the RDA as the RDA investment. Again, that $64 million is to be paid for by sources that I'll explain in just a moment. It does not reflect a property tax increase or a sales tax increase. There is a provision in the agreement also that allows for the RDA to receive what's called a waterfall payment. So over time, as values increase and the developer sells all or a portion of the project, then as a partner to the project, we have the ability to receive payment as a return on the investment that we've made, all the way up to and potentially capturing all of the $64 million investment. Depends on the performance of the project over the period. So this is how the principal repayment is made of the $64 million. So you see that we have $6.5 million in federal and state grants, $21 million through tax increment that's generated just from the project itself, and as well as $36 million from what we call BDO lease revenue, which is investment return from a project that was done in 1999, and we receive proceeds from that. And so that's how, in general, the principal of the bonds would be paid over the period of the bonds. There are two numbers that you'll hear, and Laura will be here in just a moment if she's not here already. Okay, great. So she'll explain this more fully. She'll explain what the par amount is, what the two numbers are in terms of the 64 million versus the 75 max par. So I'll let her explain that because she is much smarter than me. So that is the WonderBlock topic. We do have some additional information on our website, ogdencity.com/WonderBlock. There's some QR codes attached to the boards in the hallway, so you can just simply beep that with your camera. It'll take you right to this page. There's an FAQ section as well as a feedback button that those who wish to can actually provide feedback, and that comes to our staff, and we can forward that to the mayor for his review. So with all of this new residential and commercial development in the downtown, and with all of the envisioning that Make Ogden brings, where is everyone going to park? Natural question. We hear that from everybody. And so we looked at studying our current situation, and essentially, as you drive around, you'll see that most of the time, especially on 25th Street, Kiesel, and other popular key areas, we have congested parking that is hurting businesses. We have 2.5 parking enforcement officers for the whole city now. And so even though we have those timed areas, a lot of times those areas go unenforced, and so we have congested parking. And if we look at the demands of just Wonder Block, as well as other demands that Make Ogden calls for through the development scenarios within it, we will have a much more precarious situation. Our parking capacity will seriously be overwhelmed as we go through this proposed process. And so we had to look at that very seriously, so we initiated a parking study. That parking study was done by our partner, Kimley Horn, again, one of the best in their class across the country. And they provided a third-party assessment of our current parking situation and any parking management options that we might have. And the results of that were that essentially our peak activity is about 50%. And again, that there are some of those pinch point areas that are reaching what is called the effective capacity threshold, which is 85% or over. And what that means is that the perception of parking, the perception of full parking is just as bad as having full parking or having not full parking. So if visitors and folks are coming to the downtown and they're looking to park and they only see 1 or 2 areas that are full, they would deem, and they do deem, the area as being as having no parking, and so they make different choices. So even though, generally speaking, all of downtown has a capacity of about 50%, it's those key areas that we're worried about. And we know that those other areas that are currently at 50 will continue to grow in terms of their occupancy. And so as we look at the Make Ogden development plans, that's only going to get worse. And in the study, it recommended in order to manage that, we would need to go to a different type of management system. We are managing parking now. As I mentioned, we have parking enforcement officers. We have signed and timed areas. We have parking permits in some areas of the city, Electric Alley being one of them. And so the recommendations from Kimley Horn was to manage it differently and to implement a paid parking management system. And that would allow us to support the health and vibrancy of the downtown. It allows for that equitable and efficient management of what is a limited resources in this case. It encourages turnover, especially in those high demand areas, as I mentioned. It actually reduces traffic congestion, because think of it, all of those people looking for a stall that they can't find, they continue to circle and circle. So air quality is affected, traffic congestion is affected, and essentially it presents to the public a predictable and reliable system that once you learn it, and it does take time to understand how to engage with a paid parking system, but once that happens, then it's very predictable and reliable, and that's an attractive option for folks. So contingent upon the approvals that we're seeking through this process, we would implement the paid parking system in the high demand areas, in addition to the 2 public parking structures that are being proposed at the Wonder Block. That phased implementation would happen over the course of a few years. And in the blue you see there, that would be phase 1. The dark blue blocks are the Wonder Block parking structures, the dark red blocks. And then that blue would be the area surrounding it. And so that would be the phase 1 implementation, with phase 2 happening a little bit more to the north. To pay for this parking system, which would include the 2 parking structures at Wonder Block, which again are entirely public. So the uses of Wonder Block will be able to utilize those parking stalls. There's 1,136, as well as anybody parking at 25th Street, any employer, anybody, any visitor. So these are true public parking structures located at Wonder Block. In addition to those two, it would also implement the technology needed to convert the on-street parking. So those streets that I just pointed out in the blue, they would be converted to paid parking at that time as well. And that investment is $53,500,000. And that is being proposed to be paid for by a revenue bond through the Municipal Building Authority. And again, that would not increase property tax or sales tax as a result of that. We've estimated through our work with Kimley Horn, looking at all kinds of demand models, that the revenues that are projected from the parking would exceed the payment of that bond. So again, here's a summary of that, and Laura will explain exactly what that means in terms of the parameters resolution that's before you, and what the process is. So in terms of rates, we have a range here that's projected to be $1.50 to $2 on the street, and $1 to $1.50 on some of the lots, the surface lots that would be out of the major primary areas. We would look at daily maxes as a range, as well as monthly permits that one could buy. If essentially, if you're an employee or a business or a resident, you can buy a monthly permit. And we would make all of that easy through the traditional things that you see in other areas that have paid parking. Salt Lake's a great example where they have a kiosk, they have an app. There's also cash options, which we're looking at. So all of that would be accessible and easy to engage with from a user's perspective. So we have more information about the parking system. It's found at ogdencity.com, Go Park Ogden. And again, there's a feedback link there that we would love to hear from the community on some of those things. So again, just echoing the mayor's comments, this is a generational opportunity. We have a big vision for Ogden. We've talked about how Make Ogden has established that vision, how Wonder Block fits into that vision, and how parking will help facilitate that vision. And we recommend that to you and to the community's consideration tonight. So that's all for me. I turn the time over to Laura, and she will talk about specifically the bond parameters resolutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Welcome, Laura.
Welcome, Mr. Chair and Council. It's good to be here. Is this the driver, I'm assuming? Let's find out.
I think you're the driver.
I think all I can do is blind you with this.
Think of that as a steering wheel.
You have to point. You have to point at Brandon.
Right arrow. Oh, there we go. All right. So the project funding plan, what we're doing is 2 bond issues. As Brandon went through, you effectively kind of have 2 projects. They, certainly support one another in many ways, but the most efficient thing to do, and then still preserve a capacity for the city to do other things, for other projects that you have identified in the future, will be to fund in this way. So we plan on issuing a tax increment and sales tax revenue bond for the project development costs for Wonder Block. And I'll talk about these more in detail in the next few slides. Then we will plan on issuing a Municipal Building Authority bond, also known as lease revenue bonds for the parking structures. So the tax increment and sales tax revenue bonds, they'll fund the difference necessary to incentivize the developers to come in and start this Make Ogden project with this phenomenal high-end project. They'll be secured. So again, think if you're a bond holder, what that bond holder will look to for security is the tax increment that will come off of that development. And just for your constituents, and I'm sorry I was late, but if Brandon didn't explain tax increment, if he did, I'll give you a refresher. Tax increment, people hear taxes and they're like, oh no, my taxes are going to go up, right? Well, tax increment is the delta difference that will be in tax revenues, property tax revenues that will be generated off of this project only. So he showed you a picture of flat dirt. right? That flat dirt does have a taxable value. It's not very high. But when you blast forward to the picture with the, 4 or 5 story, office, apartment, retail, when you blast forward to that, that's going to have a lot higher taxable value. Well, the tax increment is just off of that property only, and it's the difference between the tax revenues you get today and the tax revenues you get when that vertical build is there. So I just think that's important for your constituents to understand, because they might go, ooh, they hear the word tax and we all go to the dark side, right? And a pledge of the city's sales tax revenues. Again, Brandon mentioned a few times your sales taxes won't be increased. Your sales tax, the rate that you impose is already at the maximum, which is the case for every city that I'm aware of in the state. There may be some that don't impose the maximum, but everyone that I work with does impose that maximum. So you can't raise that sales tax rate even if you wanted to. You're already up there. We're just using those revenues as a security source for these bonds. The finance plan will be to pay the debt, so the annual payments from tax increment and dedicated funds from the city from the BDO lease agreement. Again, those revenues are coming off of a successful economic development project and come into the city every year. So you might reasonably say to me, well, Laura, if you're planning on using tax increment and BDO lease revenues, why don't you pledge BDO lease revenues? Well, the reason is we have to appease bondholders, right? And they want something that they can understand easily so that we can get it rated easily. The higher the rating, the lower your interest rate. So what I remind everyone is that what we pledge for security, or pledging for security, tax increment and sales tax, what we pledge does not mean that's what you have to use to pay the debt. So our finance plan is to use tax increment and these BDO lease revenues. It'll be far more of an education process to explain to bondholders those BDO lease revenues. They come from private companies. They'd want to know, how's their business doing? Are they planning on staying in Ogden? As opposed to, oh, here's our history of these great sales tax revenues, and we're going to use a portion of those. Those sales tax revenues would only be used or accessed directly if you don't make the payments. So you don't make the payments with your BDO lease revenues and tax increment. The trustee has the right and obligation to come in and seize your sales tax revenues to pay the bondholders. Because of that, you can see that the bonds ought to be highly rated, therefore get a low interest rate. I anticipate a rating of A or better. Really, I would hope you're in the A+ or AA- category, but I always like to be conservative, right? Even my eyes have a hard time reading that with my best glasses on, so I'll state it for those who can't see it. Here we have the estimated sources and uses of bonds. That would be if we were in the market today, and I've put in some fluff because markets have come up, markets went way up. The past few days, the municipal market rates have gone down, so I'm like, yay for that, right? But these bonds won't be issued for a while, and so that's why we have the parameters. I'll get down to that. Currently, if we were in the market today, based on current interest rates with about 25-ish basis points or 0.25% in as a cushion, I would estimate the par amount of the bonds to be $66 million. Original issue discount would be it's a difference in what they pay for a bond and what the par amount is. Probably nobody wants me to get into that discussion, but I would be happy to if you want. And then a planned issuer, Ogden City and the RDA would contribute $6.5 million to come to our total sources of $71.2 million. How would those monies be spent? We would pay the underwriter to market the bonds. We would pay the cost of issuance related with issuing those bonds. We would deposit money into a capitalized interest fund. And you say, I don't see that when I borrow a mortgage, right? Capitalized interest allows us to pay bondholders. Bondholders, they're called what? Fixed income investments, right? Well, why? They want the fixed income. I buy this bond. Every 6 months, I want to see that little check coming in for interest, right? So in order to accommodate that for a project that you want tax increment to come in, we to help pay for those bonds, we build in some capitalized interest to help give us a cushion. You'll deposit $64 million to the project construction fund, which was a number that Brandon had up on his slides, and then bonds are issued in equal $5,000 increments, so we always have some funky little rounding amount. And there you see your sources match your uses. The debt would be amortized over a period of 35 years. Currently, with this schedule, the debt payments would be about not quite, but close to $4.5 million. The bonds would be callable. Most tax-exempt bonds are callable at 10 years at par. And at that point in time, with the development agreement, the city will be able to benefit when that project sells, and those monies can be used to further pay down these bonds. If everything isn't paid down at that time, then we would likely have to refund the balance that's owing on a taxable basis. So with that, you might say to yourself, well, why on earth, if you think it's only going to be, $66 million in bonds, why on earth do you need $75 million in the parameters resolution? Why do you need 37 years? Why do you need 6.5%? So the resolution that you'll be considering, as I understand, the point of tonight is to consider the resolution, but to set a public hearing. You'll actually be adopting it after you hold the public hearing in January. The par amount of the bonds will change some as interest rates change, because that will impact the capitalized interest, impacts the cost of issuance. So there's an argument that maybe I've been too conservative, but because we're not issuing these bonds until the next probably April, May-ish, I just like a cushion, right? So the parameters resolution says you have to stay within these lanes, and you stay within these lanes. We don't have to come back before this board or this body. So I always give myself a little bit of wiggle room on the maximum term, a little bit of wiggle room on the rate, and a little bit of wiggle room, if you will, in regard to the par amount of the bonds. So that's what that is. Okay. Any questions? I've either bored you all to death or you're really, really good students. All right, so this is a graphical representation of the finance plan revenues compared to the debt service. You can see the tax increment bar is there in blue, and the BDO lease revenue, revenue that you receive but will be securing with sales tax is represented there in the orange bars. All right, next, the Municipal Building Authority. It's one of my more favorite things to talk about in the bond world to councils and constituents, because it's the thing that is the most relatable to the finance that we've all dealt with in getting a mortgage. Building Authority works very similar to a mortgage in that the security for those bonds is that physical asset, just like the security for your mortgage is your home. So if the city does not make the payments, you will not own the parking structure. The one difference is that under municipal bonds, we can cross-collateralize facilities. So think of it this way. I happen to be fortunate enough to own a small condo in St. George, and I own a home in Murray. Well, I have separate mortgages on each of those, right? If I were able to work under the structure of the municipal bond world, I could use both of those as collateral for one loan. Then the mortgage company would have the right, if I don't make a payment, I don't get to choose, really, I'm going to make part of a payment, I'm going to put that toward the condo. And you take my home, I'll take the condo. You don't get that choice. When you cross-collateralize, it means it's, all or nothing. You make the payment, you keep all the facilities. You don't make the payment, you keep none of the facilities. So it's fairly, again, just easier to understand in a world that we all deal with on a personal level. So it'll be secured by a first trust deed on the physical facilities. There'll be a freestanding parking structure, and there'll be a parking structure that's, we basically do what we call the condominiumization. That is not a word you can find in a dictionary. Of the other parking structure. So think of, 2 or 3 stories of parking structure building, office, apartments, whatever on top of that. What will be security is the condominiumized portion of that parking structure underneath that building. I have everything. Oh, and we'll also be financing as part of that the on-street parking stuff, mechanics, electronics, whatever that is. Let's see. One nice thing. So you might say to yourself, well, you've got so much sales tax. Why not do this as a sales tax bond? Interest rate is a little bit lower on a sales tax bond than a building authority, but I want to make sure that we have preserved flexibility for the city for other projects. I know you've talked about other things. These bonds will be outstanding for a long time. And we want to make sure that you have the ability to pledge sales tax to other things. You can also, under this building authority structure, we can bring things into it in the future under that same, all for one kind of mentality that really helps to secure future debt. The finance plan there in green, this is what is important. I mean, it's nice to say, oh yes, you can buy a new, the used car salesman. You can afford this car, but you have to know how you're going to pay for it, right? That's what I'm here for. So make sure that we structure the debts so that it's reasonable for the city to expect to pay for that without a lot of undue burden. So the finance plan is to pay for the parking bonds with the revenues from the parking study. Again, remember, the security is the physical facilities. The finance plan that we will have internally will be to, structure that debt so it will ramp up with the projections of the revenues from the parking study. We'll fund capitalized interest here until those revenues start to flow. Holy moly. So here we are again, really teeny tiny words. Part of these bonds, the parking structure bonds, will be taxable. Due to private use issues that, trust me, you do not want a tax attorney here. It would put you to sleep. But the very high level, simple way to think of it is if you have private use and private payment, if you trigger both of those things, then your bonds would have to be designated taxable. So if this entire structure, or structures plural, if the entire structure was going to be used by a private entity, remember all your citizens aren't private entity, they're public citizens, right? We're going to be used by a private entity and we were receiving private payment, then all of the bonds would have to be taxable. We have to go through all kinds of machinations to make the determination of, well, if a stall is designated as a private stall and it's being paid for by a corporation, then there's designation for taxable. So we have gone through a significant amount of that analysis thus far. That will continue. At the moment, and I don't make that decision, thankfully. Your Bond and Disclosure Council, they have tax counsel. I've spent hours with them. They make that final determination based on the fact circumstances we provide to them. Currently, we're anticipating that 30% of the bonds will be taxable. Obviously, those are at higher rates. We structure those to amortize first, and 70% will be tax exempt, and we will structure those so they are retired later. The total par amount of the bonds is $71.8 million. There will be, we pay the original issue. Here, I thought it's showing in here as if we got original issue discount, but I thought it was a premium. I will double check that. Pay the underwriter's discount, cost of issuance. In this instance, we are establishing a debt service reserve fund. Because these bonds are secured by the assets themselves, you have the right to not make that lease payment in a year you don't want to keep those facilities, right? Well, that's a risk to the bond purchasers. They're certainly hoping you'll pay them every year, but they can't come and grab your sales tax like they could on the other structure, right? They only have that facility as an asset. So if you don't make the payment, there is a reserve fund sitting there that will make the payment for a year while they go through a workout, effectively. Figure out, are they going to sell it? Are they going to try to manage the parking? What are they going to do? So we fund that out of bond proceeds. Assuming you make your payments, then that payment gets released to make the last payment, so it's not money you lose. It just sits in an account by the trustee. We also have capitalized interest here to make sure that we ramp up, that the structures get built, your revenues are being generated, because that's a finance plan to use those revenues to repay. Again, we have the project construction fund of $53.5 million. We have a little bit of rounding amount, and there we go. So again, here, same song and dance relative to the parameters. The parameters are larger than what I'm expecting, because if I dialed it right down to this and interest rates move and that capitalized interest goes up, we got to come back and do this fund all over again. Maximum term of 40 years. That is a maximum allowed under Utah law. The maximum coupon rate on this one is 8%. Again, I don't think we'll hit that, but need the headroom because part of these bonds are taxable. And then the maximum discount. And there you have the projected revenues versus the debt service. I can see we've got a little bit of a delta. Ooh, let's see, I get to use this cute little pointer. No, I don't. I don't get to use that. Ooh, right there. Ooh, we got a little triangle there of, I've got to work on pushing some of that principal out a little bit longer. But we, our aim as we perfect this will be to get that, the debt underneath the estimated revenues. And currently, the estimated debt service payments are about $4.82 million. I think that's it. Any questions?
Can I just ask one
Sure
clarifying
can.
question? Is that
Yep.
okay, Chair? When you're saying for the municipal bond loan, are we also using this building as part of our
No.
securities? Okay, I just
No,
want to
yep,
clarify that.
that's a good question. Under state law, you are only allowed to put assets up that already have debt against them or that you are improving. So let's say that there was still, $5 million or whatever left going on this facility that we're sitting in. There is not.
Right.
If there was, right, we might want to consider grabbing that into the structure just because it would bring this, great sort of equity piece and whatever. But under state law, we can't do that unless you have debt outstanding or again are improving it. So if you're going to make major improvements here, we could do that, but I can't. So the answer is no.
I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
And neither of the bonds can be repaid early, correct?
They can be, both of them I anticipate will have 9 or 10-year par calls. So at that point, you could pay them off. If you want to pay them off in 2 years, we can always set up an escrow, but that might be expensive.
This is why we hire a financial advisor and bond counsel when that time comes. Okay, so before we outline next steps and process moving forward, Brandon, is there anything else you need to cover that you want the public and the council to know before we break?
In year 9 or 10 or every
Good.
9 or
Okay.
10 years.
So we did start just a little bit late.
Laura, sorry, can I just ask one clarifying question?
Sure.
We can pay them off early in years 9 or 10, you're not sure?
It will depend when we get to pricing. I'll request 9-year, so I always ask for an 8 or 9-year call. But if they say to me, sure, we could do that, it's going to cost you an extra 0.25% interest, I'm going to say, yeah, let's go with the 10-year.
Okay, so meaning year 10 or every 10 years?
No, at year 10,
At year 10.
or beyond.
Okay, perfect.
And that kind of gets to some of the discussion moving forward for later tonight as well, is part of why we hire financial advisor is to get financial advice, but also to help us get the best deal possible on bonds that we might consider in the future. So
Yes.
we will be taking some action later on that is not final action, but we do need to take some preliminary actions that basically give Laura the go-ahead with the city, the RDA, and the Municipal Building Authority lock and step to go out and shop the best deal for the
Right, as
bond.
long as we stay in the lanes. But really, we won't be doing anything officially
Right.
until you have the public hearing and adopt the resolution that night.
Okay, so for tonight, so we've got the project introduction from Brandon Cooper. We've got a little bit, some of the financial introduction and details from Laura. There's a lot more information and details about the project. We want to give all of you guys an opportunity to ask the professionals the questions and answers that you need. We're going to be doing the same thing alongside you. We'll be listening to the questions you're asking. I hope you're listening to the questions that we're asking. When we're done here, sometime around 5:30 or a little after maybe, we do need to reconvene back into the workroom as council members to handle a little bit of business before our 6 p.m. meeting. In that 6 p.m. meeting, we will handle those sort of setup points where we need to make some authorizations to allow Laura to start shopping deals and tell us what it is we'll be making a decision on January 10th. Between tonight and January 10th, we'll take feedback from you guys through all the traditional sources. We'll gather that feedback, and if necessary, I don't think a second open house is off the table. If it's necessary, we can do that. We want to find out what kind of feedback we get and also what kind of questions and feedback we get from council members. But leading up to January 10th, that will be the deciding point. So we're sort of setting a finish point for a decision, and we're setting a kind of parameters for all the information we're going to gather leading up to that point. I hope that helps clarify. Okay, so we don't have to take a formal motion to convene or to close this session. So we'll everybody just get up and head out to the foyer. I think administrative staff and consultants will take their places and help answer questions.
For me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please consider joining us for a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, well, we're going to start tonight off with a couple of acknowledgements. First is the Small Business Saturday. We'll have presenters from Haley Van Patten, Thomas Kiernan, and Kim Boucher from the Ogden Downtown Alliance. Or maybe just Haley.
Surprise, it's just me. Sorry, everyone.
Okay.
That's a letdown. My name is Haley Van Patten, for those of you who don't know me, and I am with the Ogden Downtown Alliance. And we have had the opportunity to assist with business communications throughout the projects that were discussed earlier, especially with the paid parking discussions and helping to get that information out to business owners. And we are very excited to continue that direct support with our efforts for Shop Small and Small Business Saturday. And we have been working with Shop Small on that effort, and I am excited to announce that we have been named the neighborhood champion for Ogden City. So with that, we are able to provide additional resources to Ogden's local and independently owned businesses. So we are very excited for that initiative, and that is on November 26th. And so we kindly ask everyone to commit to that intentional support of Ogden's local and independently owned businesses and to shop small this year. And we hope to see you downtown on Small Business Saturday on November 26th.
Thank you, Haley. Picked a good night to be here. We're getting a lot of questions about how our proposals tonight affect small business. Okay, we're also, for those of you who are not aware, we have a youth council in the city of Ogden. And our own Warren Hallmark, he's our policy analyst for city council, is going to introduce a few of them that are here with us tonight.
Good evening, everyone. So fresh off of adopting the revised resolution from last month about the Youth City Council, we wanted to bring a few of them in to formally present them to you for the 2022-2023 school year. There's 15 total in the group. Only 2 of them were able to show up tonight. They're a busy group. They have basketball, they have extracurricular activities. So we're grateful for the 2 that were able to show up tonight. I'm going to go ahead and read off a list of everyone that we have participating in no particular order, and then I'll have Thor and Aiden stand up as I read their names. But we have Mercedes Rantan from St. Joseph Catholic High School, Damaris Diaz Sarzeno from Ben Lomond High, Brooklyn Ritchie, who someone on the stand might know, from Mount Fort Junior High, and then Tanel and Lacey Garrett, who likewise might be familiar to somebody. They go to New Ames. And then we have Castle Stoll from the Da Vinci Academy, Adan Ochoa from the Da Vinci Academy, Kaihan Azami from the Northern Utah Academy for Math, Engineering, and Science, Avery Brunson from the Da Vinci Academy, Kieran Sieran from Ben Lomond High, Thor Dorosh, if you'll go ahead and stand up, Thor. Thor is actually our chairperson for the Youth Council this year. And then Melanie Juarez from Da Vinci, Ellie Gomez from New Ames, and Aiden Bordereau from New Ames, and then TJ Shelton from Ben Lomond. So they're going to be decorating the trailer for Christmas Village. You'll be rubbing some shoulders with them later this month, and looking forward to meeting them. But is it all right if we snap a quick picture for their historical portion? Okay, come on, you two. To appropriately represent the rest of it by way of your hand. Hey, everybody looking here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Put your stand. Put your footprint.
Okay.
Thank you, Warren, for all the work you do to help facilitate those guys. And for the two that are in attendance, just stick around for the rest of the night. You might want to change life directions here in a little bit. But okay, we'll start. Move on to the next item. Item number 3 is a recognition. We'll be.
Actually, we
have a couple other
acknowledgements.
Sorry.
That's okay.
We have other acknowledgements.
I'd like to acknowledge that I saw Luis stand on his tippy toes in that picture.
Oh.
No, real acknowledgement. We have kind of some noteworthy information here that was shared with us from some employees from Ogden City that was really kind of heartwarming to hear. There's a young boy in our community with a rare disease who there was a fundraiser run that was organized on his behalf, and apparently this little boy really loves garbage trucks, and who doesn't, right? Watching those garbage trucks drive around and lift the cans up in the air and everything. And so the following employees: Gina Ariano, Trent Nelson, Chris Hugie, and Jason Gladstone each kind of participated here. Gina, I think, found out about it and went and actually purchased with her own money a toy garbage truck that she wanted to give to this boy, which you can see in the picture there. And Trent Nelson and Chris were able to put some custom stickers on there to give him his own Ogden City garbage can. And JD Gladstone, he was. He volunteered to clean up the truck and drive it over to the event so that they could get some pictures with this young boy, and he was able to kind of explore that truck safely. And so anyway, it was an honor for the employees to participate in that, and I think it's just great that we get a chance to recognize them for stepping up and being involved in the community in this way. So,
thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any others?
Yeah, I have one. As many of you know, last Friday was Veterans Day, which is a great opportunity for us to recognize and show our gratitude to those who are currently serving our country and who have served our country. As many of you know, serving in the military can take a toll on those who serve on their mental health, especially those that serve in combat positions. It is estimated that 22 veterans die every day from suicide. And so in an effort to bring awareness to that, the Ogden Police and Fire Department participated in a 22 for 22 veteran suicide awareness event held on November 8th. The 22 for 22 was 22 push-ups for the 22 veteran suicide. Chief Matthew, Chief Young, Mayor Caldwell, Lieutenant Will Farr, and many other police officers and firefighters took the challenge to do 22 push-ups to bring awareness to the high suicide rate of our veterans. I think I'm the only one that hasn't seen this video, but if you haven't, also you're in for a rare treat. This is our video of Mayor and some of other city officials doing the 22 for 22. We'll go ahead and play that now.
Hello, Ogden City Police here, along with Ogden City Fire Department and the Mayor of Ogden City. We have Chief Eric Young, we have Chief Mike Matthew, and we also have Mayor Caldwell here with us today. And I would like to also introduce Naomi Keller, and she'll explain what we're here for.
Hi guys, thank you so much for being here. We are doing day 19 of 22 for 22, 22 push-ups a day for 22 days to help raise awareness about the daily rate of suicide amongst our veterans. And I am just thrilled to see the community come out and support Ogden's representing, throwing the gauntlet down. We go to Salt Lake tomorrow. We'll see if they can do half as well as this. So, Will, you're going to call them out?
Yes, very good.
22. Yes, sir.
Okay, everyone go ahead and get your positions. Ready to begin. Down. 1. Down. 2. Down. 3. Down. 4. Down. 5. Down. 6. Down. 7. Down. 8. Down. 9. Down. 10. Down. 11. Down. 12. Down. 13. Down. 14. Down. 15. Down. 16. Down. 17. Down. 18. Down. 19. Down. 20. Down. 21. Down. 22.
Flaming at the end. Flaming at the end.
Thank you so much for being here.
Good to see you, man.
I'm so happy to.
But I mean, whether it was easy for some or hard for some to do that, it is impressive, and it is a wonderful thing for us to remember our veterans and those that have served our country and do that for us on our behalf. So I thank the mayor and those other city officials that did that and brought awareness to that. And I'm not sure I could have done it, so I'm not going to make one bit of jokes
Let's
about
go do it right now.
Yeah.
Right here.
So thanks, Mayor, for doing that.
I'm not doing it again. And that's a lot of gray hair. A lot of gray hair and a lot of flaming
right.
at the end.
Yeah.
It's horrifying.
The down seemed a lot easier. It was, yeah. But yeah, it's just a neat thing that we were able to participate in. I just want to bring a little awareness to it.
I am going to try and be disciplined and not make jokes, Mayor, for once. But I do want to acknowledge how tiny my extra large sweater got this year. So tell Mavis next year I'm a double fat, not single. So. Okay. Any other recognitions?
That's it.
Okay. All right, we're going to have Councilmember White read the Honorary Mayor of Christmas Village proclamation.
Thanks, Chair. This is with great honor, by the way. This is declaring November 2022 as Rick Danger Day in Ogden City. Whereas Rick Danger was born and raised in Story City, Iowa, and attended Methodist University and John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center. Throughout his life, Rick has gained wisdom and experience through adversity and hard work. And whereas Rick and his wife Barb have lived and worked in Ogden for the past 10 years. Before moving to Ogden, Rick spent 10 years with the U.S. Army, worked for PepsiCo for 20 years, and for Sara Lee for 5 years. Currently, Rick is the franchise general manager of Admiral Beverage Corporation, a local family-owned beverage supplier for Pepsi products. And whereas Rick always looks for opportunities to serve and get involved in the community. He volunteers for various events hosted by the Goal Foundation, Ogden City, Ogden Downtown Alliance, Visit Ogden, Nurture the Creative Mind, Ogden Arts, Junior League of Ogden. I'm going to have to take a breath. Ogden Police and Fire Departments, and the Weber County Sheriff's Office. Because of his efforts in the community, Rick was the recipient of Indy Ogden's first ever Ogdenite of the Year award. And somewhere he finds time to fish, take amazing photos, and have fun with his dog. And whereas Rick, Barb, and all the ABC employees have been heavily involved with Ogden's Christmas Village. For the past 7 years, they have designed and built the Make-A-Wish Grand Marshal Float for the Christmas Village parade. And at the end of the parade, Rick and Barb give each child a piece of their float to help them remember the experience. It fills their heart with joy to spend time with these children and help them feel special. They have also built and are sponsors of the Grand Marshal Legacy House at Christmas Village. And whereas we are grateful for the opportunity to highlight Rick's legacy and influence in Ogden City. Through his dedication and service, Rick has enhanced the quality of life for our residents and has contributed to the betterment of our community. Now, therefore, Mayor Michael P. Caldwell and the Ogden City Council do hereby proclaim November 26, 2022 as, and even though he likes to stay in the back, Rick Danger Day in Ogden City and declare him the honorary mayor of Christmas Village for 2022. We express our sincere gratitude for his invaluable contributions to our community and encourage everyone to join us in honoring Rick by visiting and enjoying Ogden's Christmas Village. With that, I make the motion that we adopt Rick Danger Day.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember White, second by Councilmember Chaburka to adopt the joint proclamation declaring November 26, 2022 as Rick Danger Day. This is a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Oh. You don't just get to sit in the back anymore. You got to come up here.
Oh.
She's got something for you first of all. Well, something to put somewhere.
Wow.
So, thank you, Rick, for all you do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can do 22.
Yeah.
You gonna do a picture?
Let's take a picture.
I can't.
Is there, do you have anybody else with you?
Yeah,
Your
maybe,
sweatshirt?
yeah, our sweatshirts and the rest of the.
Okay, looking here. 1, 2, 3. 4, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
All right.
Now we'll hear from you.
Say a couple words.
Say a couple words.
Start out with Shiza.
Shiza.
Gotcha.
Wow, what an honor, what a privilege. Marcia's correct. I work mostly behind the scenes. I have the great honor to work with 300 employees that just love our town and our community and Weber County and where they live, and they've always participated. We just brought a little more excitement to that, but this really is about them, and I hope you understand how much we appreciate being able to support Christmas Village and those kids that we build those floats for are amazing, and the float should be amazing as well. So this year will not disappoint. Jack, if you saw the press release, is our Make-A-Wish kid for this year, and he loves Jurassic Park. So giant dinosaurs. How tall are the stoplights? What's the, I don't know, Brontosaurus or something like 18 feet tall. I don't know, but we'll get it through downtown without hurting anything, and appreciate this. So for all my team and Barb and I, thank you.
Jerry, you might want to recognize the rest of the Christmas Village folks that are here.
Yeah.
Oh, we are? Yeah. Sorry, never mind. Next.
I will recognize that it's nice having a mayor for one day a year that can do 22 push-ups. Though.
I don't know about that, but I will say this is my favorite month because I will forward all of my complaint calls to Rick, who's the new mayor for Christmas Village for the month of December.
Okay, and I really don't know if I could do 22 either. So, okay, next item on our agenda is approval of minutes for the joint work session of May 24th, 2022. Councilmember Blair.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I have reviewed those and found them to be accurate.
Work session of May 31st, 2022. Councilmember Chaburka.
Yes, Chair, I've read those and they're accurate to my recollection.
Work session of June 7th and joint work session of June 14th, 2022. Councilmember Heyer.
Yes, Chair Nadolski, I have read those and they are accurate to the best of my recollection.
Regular meeting of June 7th, 2022. Councilmember Ritchie.
Yes, Chair, I've read those and found those to be accurate.
Special meeting of June 14th, 2022. Councilmember White.
Yes, I have read those and found them to be accurate, and I make the motion that we approve the minutes.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember White, second by Councilmember Blair to adopt the minutes as presented. This is a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you for your review. Okay. And
I'm worried about that Christmas Village committee. They all just left.
Did they?
Yeah.
Well,
There's some of them here.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Okay, so we have the consideration of appointments of Michelle Miller and Leanne Christensen to the Christmas Village Advisory Committee.
Chair, I would make a motion that we adopt the items listed under common consent.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Blair, second by Councilmember Ritchie to adopt the item listed under common consent. This too is a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Welcome to the committee. Are Michelle and Leanne here? There you are.
Don't we take,
they're
we take
coming back.
pictures?
Yeah.
Come back.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Monty, for going out and getting them. So we'd love to bring up the new members and any of the current members that you'll be serving with. We'd love to have a picture ahead of the holidays, if it's all right with you.
Oh, no.
Good, how are you? Greg.
We'll have to hold the stand thing there.
Yeah. We all in?
Get tighter, maybe turn to the side a little bit. There you go. There you go. That's better. Okay, yeah, look at here. 1, 2, 3. Bear with me. Did you, are you good? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's good to see you.
Okay. Thank you, Leanne and Michelle. Welcome aboard the committee, and thank you to all the committee members for all the work you guys are doing. All right. Next item is reports from the Planning Commission. We've got 2 items tonight under this heading. The first we'll bring up is the proposed rezone at 305 Harrison Boulevard. Is that Joe Simpson? Are you going to present that? Is William Snedden here, the petitioner? You know?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, members of the council. It's good to be with you tonight. So this is looking at a petition to do a rezone at 305 Harrison. There we go. Just to kind of give you a placement where that is. It's close to 2nd Street in Harrison, near a commercial area. There's a commercial market located there on 2nd and Harrison. Proposal is for the vacant property south of that commercial zone and commercial market to be rezoned from R18 to and R16 to R2 to allow for a 2-family development to occur on the property. The property size is just under 2.5 acres. It's former location of the Sherwood Market. And a photo mat I'm aware of. And that little parcel we see on this plat that's 8 by 25 had what's called a photo mat. And that was where you would get your pictures processed, apparently, but also other commercial components on the property. So it's had a history of a higher intensive use. And this proposal is looking at where the property is set vacant for some time, some redevelopment. And there is some options we'll go into in the Hillcrest Bonneville Community Plan, but just to kind of give a visual overlook of the property of the surrounding area, it shows the Car Mart there on the corner. Recently in 2017, the Leadership Learning Academy was developed on majority of the vacant property on the west side, which left this remaining portion of property along Harrison. If we look at the area, it's pretty much predominantly single family except for this area is indicated as the commercial CP2 zoning that the existing market is on. But there are also some duplex properties zoned R2 just across the street, kitty corner from the commercial market. And so there's a little bit of higher intensive use in this area, and then predominantly surrounded by single family zoning. The intent is to develop duplex units throughout a larger, what our code calls a group dwelling development, which be more than one building on the property. This isn't exactly how it would be laid out, but just a concept to give some idea of some ways that it could be developed on the property for duplex uses. The important thing to look at is the support from looking at the general plan and the community plan. This property is located in the Hillcrest Bonneville community. It does describe some options for this property, allowing, as it's highlighted here, some slightly higher density allowed in the area. Some options that were given were, the one first option that's mentioned is having a through street, which I think is cut off on my slide here. I apologize, but this through street would have connected from Harrison all the way down to 2nd Street. But with the development of the school, that's prevented that option from being developed. Some other options that have been laid out in the code look at consideration for like mixed use, where some commercial with residential, or developing like a senior living kind of facility. It does make some mention here that it's important that the development of the property not be just large row housing, massive buildings, and have monolithic style, but actually have a individualistic appearance to them. And so with that rezoning of the R2, that helps to break up and not just allow large row housing, but just individual two unit buildings. This was looked at by the Planning Commission, and recommendation of 5-0 to approve the petition, subject to all of those parcels be included, even the little photo mat one, which has been acquired by the petitioner since the initial application of the petition.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Any questions for Joe? Guess not. Okay, Mr. Does the petitioner want to add anything? Right, come up to the mic if you would. Is it Snedden or Sneeden?
My name is William Snedden.
Snedden. Can you step to the mic for us?
Yeah, excuse me.
We'll give you a few minutes if you've got anything you want to cover that Joe didn't cover.
We looked at a lot of options on the property. We've been on that corner for 47 years, so this piece of property is not unknown to us. And we looked at a number of options up there over the years when the school came in and they widened Harrison and so on. It kind of left this area as an area that we weren't sure what to do with, and the commercial development down on 2nd Washington was going down and everything. So we looked at townhouses, and the Planning Commission helped us through all that. That didn't seem to be like that was a good alternative, and they subsequently looked at commercial, and that was out. So we tried to do something that would work up there and fit in with our business, because we are a neighborhood business. We're trying not to get along with our neighbors. We have to close the doors every night at 11 o'clock, and we'd like to maintain our business. So we looked at these duplexes, and hopefully we can make that work, and it will be an improvement to the corner and continue our development of that corner that we've done as a family, and we're proud of what it looks like today, and hopefully we can make it look better with this development. So
thank you.
Appreciate your consideration in rezoning it. The photomat is gone now. We were able to take that out of as a problem part of this rezone. So that's part of our property now. So that's gone.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council members for the petitioner? Okay.
Maybe one. We got a little bit of public input from this petition, and it was concerning mostly height. The concern was that if you build to a maximum allowable height, that they'd be kind of looking into people's back, windows and things. And I just didn't know if you had any, and you just supplied a concept plan, but doesn't show any elevations or anything.
I know we're limited by the agreement up there is singles, 21 feet or whatever that is. It's they're they can be one level of apartments. That's it, or 21 feet high. I guess that could be an upstairs, but there is a height limit on our development. And
yeah, I was just gonna.
We don't have
to be sensitive to the concerns that are
no,
there.
that's fine.
Sure.
And
all right.
We have, access in and out of the place, and tried to align the intersection of 3rd Street and our exit onto Harrison. So
great.
We'll make it nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Joe, anything to add? I don't know where you went. There you are. Anything else to add? Okay. All right, we will receive public input on this item. Just to clarify, we are accepting public input at the end of this council meeting for any topic. We don't have public comment for the RDA or the MBA meetings that follow, but we will be accepting public input for the proposed rezone at 305 Harrison Boulevard only at this time. If anybody cares to address the council on this item, come to the mic and state your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Okay.
Chair, doesn't look like there's a rush.
Not saying
anything online.
So, yeah, is there anybody online?
Okay, seeing no hands raised, I think we're ready for
I'll
action.
make a motion then to adopt ordinance 2022-47.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Heyer, second by Councilmember Ritchie to adopt proposed ordinance 2022-47. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Choberka?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Ritchie?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Vice Chair Lopez?
Aye.
Chair Nadolski?
Aye, that passes. Thank you, Mr. Sneeden, and thank you, Joe. Next item is the East Central Community Plan and Zoning Amendments. Barton Brierly, Planning Manager, and you're going to cover the entire page of motions in the next one?
I am, yes.
Okay,
it's like the 12 days of Christmas.
I know.
Make it 12 seconds.
We're hoping to skip a motion marathon later, but
yes.
So we'll do one presentation on all of the items listed on page 3 of the agenda. And if there's no changes, we can handle that in one motion. But if there are changes, we'll have to parse it apart.
Okay.
So, okay. Thanks, Martin.
So good evening, Chair and City Councilors. This is an exciting day. We've been working hard on updating the East Central Plan and ready to present it to you today for your approval. So just to orient you, the East Central community is basically between Adams and Harrison and between the Ogden River and 30th Street. It is a historic area. It's the Central Bench Historic District. I also note on this map 2 things important that are happening. One is the bus rapid transit, the Ogden Express, going through this area, and also the 9 Rails Creative District, which is half within the East Central community. So in updating the plan, we had 3 objectives. One is to plan for land uses near the Ogden Express bus rapid transit. We wanted to ask the community, what's the best uses of land near there? Second is, how do we incorporate the 9 Rails Creative District into the plan? And third is, consider allowing accessory dwelling units in the R15 areas. We had a pretty extensive public involvement process. We talked to a lot of people, got a lot of input, and I won't go over everything that we did in the public involvement, but I will say that the public involvement really directed the plan. It's what you have in front of you today is really directed from all the input we got in all those public processes. I'll say that not everything was unanimous. It never is, but I do believe it represents the majority of what the input that we got. So first, we asked on the bus rapid transit. As you can see, it goes through the East Central community. There are stops, several stops within the East Central community itself. And having a bus rapid transit presents a lot of opportunities because you have very good access. Typically, you want to have higher density residential near the stops. You want to have businesses. You want to have opportunities for people who don't have to get in their car to be able to use that, or people who don't have a car, or that's the only opportunity for transit. So you want to really take advantage of that. So some of the things that we looked and asked in the community is just what the stops should look like themselves, and there's included in the plan things like benches and art and lighting and secure bicycle parking. Most of that's going in now. We also heard that how important it is to have quality access to the stops. And a lot of people in there are getting a little weary of the construction over time and just looking forward to being able to walk to the stops, and want to make sure that we have good access. And then we asked, well, what should we do with the zoning? And this was our poll that we did. And we got a lot of good ideas from that. One thing that was really very well received by the community and our planning commission was the idea of allowing cottage homes near the stops. A cottage home would just be a regular single-family home on a smaller lot, and there are a number of those existing in the East Central community right now. So the proposal would be allow creation of a lot as small as 1,500 square feet to allow a 1 or 2 story home on it of limited size. And just what can you do on that? Just pulling out some possible house plans. This is an example of a kind of home that would fit on that lot with a garage. This is an example of another one that would fit, again with the parking pad. All those would fit on that size of lot. We don't expect there'll be a lot of these in the area because it is largely built out, but there are a few areas, like this is the aerial there shows a corner lot that actually the redevelopment agency owns, and currently the zoning would only allow one home, and we thought, well, what if we just turned it and oriented the small lots towards Quincy? We could actually provide some opportunities for home ownership. That was one thing that was really attractive. We do have a lot of rental housing going in the community. People were attracted to the option of being able to buy and own something and live in East Central. And so the Planning Commission recommended that those be allowed within 2 blocks of the stops. Also talked about live-work unit. Well, if somebody had a home and wanted to run a business out of there, there are provisions in building code to allow it. And so the Planning Commission talked about that as an opportunity that you're on the BRT line and you saw say a tax accountant where you wanted to go and get your taxes done there, or a hairdresser, or a nail salon, or maybe somebody wanted collected Matchbox cars and wanted to sell them out of their home. There are ways to do that. So we propose that the areas near the stops be allowed to have those live-work units. The next part of the plan we looked at was the Nine Rails Creative District, and the purpose of that is noted on the screen: to establish an epicenter for the art and culture where the creative community lives, creates, shares, and teaches for the benefit of Ogden's artists, citizens, and visitors. So there's currently a number of creative uses in the area. There's like the Dumpke Art Plaza, the Monarch, and other art uses in the area. So the idea is to promote that. And as I noted, half of that's in the East Central, and so we wanted to include the plan into the East Central plan and include goals like a creative, doing creative projects in public spaces and streetscapes, to encourage art programs and activities. Also, just what the zoning is, the East Central has the intensive district. Most of the intensive district is zoned in Central Business District. And so we'll be proposing a zone change in a couple months here to create a commercial 9 rails district. We're going to call it the C9 district to allow those creative uses in there. For tonight, part of that is zoned residential, and so we're proposing an R9 residential district to recognize art uses in that area. And we asked the citizens, what should we allow in these areas? And they came back with things like art studios and small cottages and live work units and restaurants and art galleries. And so we're proposing that the R9 zone would allow all of those uses and have special standards to allow those. And then how do you fund everything? And so part of the goal would be to seek funding, and note that we have got funding in several sources for art improvements in there. For example, the BRT stops are going to have art along them. And so he has an art grant program. And we also propose that because we're giving a lot of development potential in the R9 zone, a requirement of that would be to provide some public art, either on your own property or work with the city to do it in a public space. And so it's proposed that we include a public art requirement in the R9 zone. The third item we looked at was accessory dwelling units. An accessory dwelling unit provides an opportunity for a homeowner, if they want to have a basement apartment or a dwelling unit above a garage, that they could either use that for a family member or rent it out. And Ogden actually allows accessory dwelling units in almost all the city and in almost all the East Central. All those areas that you see on the map, zoned R2 EC and R3 EC, accessory dwelling units are allowed in those areas. And pretty much everywhere else in the city, except for these 2 squares here where it says accessory dwelling units prohibited, and one other area in the Mount Ogden community, are the only residential areas where they're currently prohibited. And so we asked the question, should we? Is it time to change? Is it time to allow those? And I looked at this headline, and it's not really the headline you want to see. It's one of the most overpriced housing markets in America that we probably should do something about that. That wakes us up as planners. Also, just looking at changing in households, I went back to the 1970s, and 60% of Ogden households were a married couple with children, and now it's down to 40%. So you got more different kinds of households, multi-generational households, or roommates, or different kinds of households. So an accessory dwelling unit provides a really good option for that type of household. It might be a great option for example, an empty nester couple who now has extra space. Instead of them having to move, maybe they could create a dwelling unit in their house and be able to get a little revenue and stay in that house. Another thing, just the East Central, in the name, it's central. It's right in the middle of the town. And so if you think about where you would want housing, where would be walkable, where you wouldn't have to get in your car and drive 20 minutes to go to work or go shopping. This is really a good location to allow housing. So the recommendation is to change the plan, just delete those few words where instead of provide for accessory dwelling units in certain areas of the neighborhood, just provide for accessory dwelling units in East Central. And part of the public input was looking at having an accessory dwelling unit over a garage, which is a very attractive option. It means that you don't have to use up all your backyard, sufficient use of space. But our code really is pretty tough on height limits there. And so we're actually changing the height limits that make it more favorable to actually put an accessory dwelling unit over a garage. So the Planning Commission's recommended that you amend the community plan and the zoning ordinance and the zoning map to promote mass transit and incorporate the Ogden Express BRT into the plan, to implement the 9 Narrows Creative District Master Plan, and to provide for accessory dwelling units. And I'll note that I think they've passed out a proposed motion with just a couple little corrections, and we'd agree to those corrections. So.
Good deal. Thank you, Barton. Yep, we did discuss those corrections in the work session beforehand. Glenn, do you want to just clarify what those were so the public knows?
Sure, yeah. So there's on Ordinance 2022-49, which is the second action on the agenda. In that particular ordinance, there's a code reference that points to another section of the code that points to the wrong section. So that there's just a number that needs to be changed there to have the right citation. And then in Ordinance 2022-54, which is action item number 7 on the agenda, there's a word used in the ordinance that's translucent, and that should be changed to transparent. So we appreciate the public comment that we got on that one that helped us notify that and make that change. So we've just got those couple little minor changes.
Okay. Thanks, Glenn. Thank you, Barton, for clarifying 11 motions pretty quick. Okay. This is your opportunity we'll take public input on this item, so this is your opportunity to address the council on the East Central Community Plan and zoning amendments. If you care to address the council on this particular item, please come to the mic, state your name, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Welcome, Kim.
Hi, Kim Boucher. I live on the street that project is on my street. The rendering is an actual house that the city really did build. It's not just an idea. So I talk here a lot because of my job, but I live in this neighborhood and I'm really excited about what is being proposed and some of the, particularly the cottage, smaller version of the bungalows that the city's already done. My street, I use as an example a lot. My home address is the same as this building. So you can imagine where I'm situated in the city. But it is a really great reflection of the community. And I think that's because the Planning Commission and also the RDA and CED redeveloped my street. And we live in one of the houses that the city built. But there's a house immediately. So I live in a 5-bedroom home, 2,600 square feet. I'm a 4-person family. I have 2 boys. And not everyone on my street is reflective of that. There's neighbors on the street that are a family of 12. There's neighbors on the street that are a couple of 2. There's people on my street that are several people who are retired and individuals and families of all. I'm saying that because it adds so much to the diversity of my neighborhood. And in that one single block is such an incredible mix of human beings. And we're business owners, we're retired people, we're restaurant staff, and just so many different lenses of the community represented there. And so I'm really excited to see this proposal. I know it seems like you're talking about the scale of a house or the square footage of something, but what that really looks like when you walk your neighborhood or when you're investing and buying a home and what your life looks and feels like. This is a great experience that we've lived through myself personally, and I'm excited to see that expand throughout the East Central with this proposal. I also come from a Navy town. Prior to living here, we lived in Everett, Washington, which is similarly to the way that the Air Force is effective here. The Navy is a big deal there. And Everett did their accessory dwelling units completely wrong. And so when I see that language, I get a little bit nervous, right? incredible lumber millionaires and this like historic town and historic district that was just gutted to become housing that was economically affordable, predominantly for the Navy. And so I think that this team has done a really good job of, I'm going to appreciate, I want to say I'm in favor of what is being proposed and the language and the care and detail that has gone into that. But as this conversation progresses and the economy becomes tighter and our community becomes more and more dense, just to keep those things in mind, that those stipulations that Barton talked through, those height requirements and the look and feel, it's really important to get that right because Everett is 40 years trying to come back from it, and it's a lot of work. So thank you, and I'm in favor of the way it's proposed.
Thanks, Kim. Come on up.
My name is Alan Jones. I'm a resident here in Ogden. I live just outside of this, on the other side of Harrison and everything. But one thing I want to make sure we're addressing here is as we increase the density in some of these neighborhoods means more cars. And more cars create more problems. We live in a place where a significant part of the year we get snow. When we have snow on the roads, the plows can't get their streets clear all the way to the sidewalk or to the curb. That creates problems. It creates problems of access, people pulling away from the curb. We have additional problems with kids in the streets, coming out from between cars, access, and generally one of my, as you may know, I complain about this on a regular basis, is speeding. We need to make sure that we have proper speed limits in these areas and proper enforcement of the speed limits and the traffic controls. Because the more we get, the more dense we get, the more cars, and the cars go up significantly. And I think the danger and hassle and issues all need to be addressed. I know there's no simple solution to any of this, but it's a concern of which I think we should all bear in mind and take into consideration. I don't know how to solve that. I usually have a solution for my whines and complaints. However, that's all I have for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else in the chambers want to address the council?
Very quick. I am Cullen Chapman. I live in District 4. And the development sounds doable, beneficial, but there's one major problem: off-street parking. The plan for the small home, I didn't see where you're going to put parking for it. You end up having people parking on the street, and it ends up making the neighborhood look like a junkyard. Unless you provide adequate off-street parking for every development, it's going to ruin the neighborhoods. And usually for a small addition in the backyard, you're going to have at least one bedroom. You're going to have a couple in there. They're going to have 2 cars. You need to have parking for 2 additional cars off-street. And if you add 3rd bedrooms, or 4th bedrooms, you should have another parking space. The people in my neighborhood across the street from me, their homes were built in 1910. They don't have driveways. They can access their property with a right-of-way through the backyard, but it's difficult to use. They end up parking on the street, and it does bring the neighborhood down. And the fact that we have the Rancho Market across the street from us, We have people parking in front of our homes. And again, it makes parking very difficult. I am stressing to the council, do not allow additional housing on property unless you provide or demand that they have adequate off-street parking. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman.
My name is D.S. Anderson. I do not live in the proposed district, and I want to respectfully to Al and the gentleman who just spoke, we have a huge problem with cars. I hate the number of cars we have in Ogden. We have an even huger problem in Ogden with affordable housing. This proposed amendment to the plan for that area increases cottage industry, economic, it benefits the citizens there. But I would recommend when you pass this, that per site, if there's a new build, assess the parking. But we don't enforce the parking codes we have now. So denying this opportunity to the development for the Nine Rails district and further, I think would be a little bit of an injustice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Yeah, come on up. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Raphael Jones. I'm a new homeowner here in town, 25th and Madison. And forgive me if I don't recognize the protocol properly here, but just being a new resident and being from back east and some places, East Central, right? Is that a name we really want? Doesn't that sound like one of those gangster movies? Can't we change the name to something like Trolley District? And if that's the case, pray tell me how I can get that started. That's it.
Normally we don't allow clapping, but the man just made so much sense. Thanks, Raphael.
Yeah, Jeremy Peterson, longtime resident. Thank you for putting this proposal together. It's a heavy lift. I went through all 162 pages that Barton wrote, and it's a lot of moving parts going on here. Rather than praise you on everything that you've done, I'm going to poke some holes where I could find them because it's a shorter list. So one of my concerns is about the transit-oriented development, and not necessarily that it's happening, but some of the requirements that would be placed on owners in those areas. One of the bullet points that came up and was mentioned in the work session video was that ADA access would be required and also some building code standards. I don't know how rigorous those standards are, but my concern would be that part of the attraction of these developments is their affordability. They're going to be boutique type businesses, and those capital improvements required might offset the benefit of that use. So something to think about with that. Also, regarding ADUs, just talk about some context. The housing market right now is currently in free fall. House prices in Weber County dropped 6% last month, and they're in the process of dropping another 6% this month. That's according to MLS data. So our affordability issue is changing as we speak. The other thing I wanted to mention also about space is that in the demographics, we talked about 60%, 40%. Does space drive demographics, or does demographics drive space? Right? If we build a bunch of apartments, we'll get that demographic. If we build a bunch of single-family houses, we'll get that demographic. There's a give and take on it. It's chicken and egg question, but I just want you to ponder on that. Finally, my biggest grievance tonight is the roof line issue regarding ADUs. It wasn't mentioned tonight in tonight's presentation, but in the work session and in the materials, talks about changing the pitches on roof or relaxing the pitches on roofs. We have an ADU permit out. We have it designed. It's 1,200 square feet, apartment over a garage. We have like 12, maybe like 11, 12 or 10, 12 pitch on that roof, and it made space tight, but the way we worked around it was with dormers, gables, and we were able to design that to make the space usable. So my recommendation to the council would be to scrap that provision. let's maintain the roof line so we honor our historic heritage here in downtown. And I've made my piece. Thank you.
Jeremy, how do you spell boutique? I was looking it up. I couldn't find it.
Boutique.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe a Y on the end there.
Thanks, Jeremy. Hi.
My name is Haley Meyer. I live in District 4 with my husband. And I would just like to voice our support for the allowance of ADUs as well as the increased height restrictions. We've lived in Ogden for about 6 years. We actually met here and fell in love here. And we bought our starter home about 4 years ago in District 4. And you know what a starter home used to be for previous generations is no longer what it is for us now. And we'd really like to stay where we are. We love Ogden. We both thought that we'd only be here for a short period of time, and now we can't seem to leave, and we don't want to. And we do love our East Central neighborhood. We've seen it grow over the last few years, and we like the trajectory. We want to stay, and we want to be a part of that growth. A change to the ordinances to allow us to invest in our property, to have an improved garage, and to have an ADU above that garage would enable us to stay and to grow as a family. I have a disabled brother that is going to be with us eventually. And we want to be able to plan for that. We have aging parents who we also like to be able to plan for, to take care of. And an ADU would allow us to do that with some space and some dignity, especially if my brother were to join us here in Ogden. We really cherish our local historical neighborhood, and we want to strive to maintain that feel and that spirit while still, progressing towards something more modern and useful and progressive with the local businesses, with the art district, with allowing ADUs and to enrich our neighborhoods in that way. We're in big support. Thank you.
Thank you, Haley.
Yeah, my name's Amelia Jones, and I do live in East Central. And I have maybe this will even answer some questions for me, because I think I've got two things to do. I love arts and I love artists, but I will say that I live next to an artist, and they use a lot of really toxic chemicals, which means there's times that when I'm outside in my yard, I can't go outside my house. And I even wonder if my food that's growing in my garden is being coated with it's shellac of some sort. I don't really know what it is. So I think there's something that needs to be, I think there needs to be some codes about use of artist studio in residential areas, because artists not all materials they use are non-toxic. And I also have some concerns about the accessory dwelling units. I don't know I don't know exactly where you can build, and I think there probably are some restrictions that weren't listed in this amendment. But I have had the experience where someone just built a huge wall basically on my property line. And I think that there needs to be some consideration about how accessory dwelling units are placed on the lot and on the property, so that they are not really impacting the neighbors as little as possible. I think that's really important. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Amelia. I was worried when you said shellac. You had me nervous there, so thank you.
Hello, my name is Shane Weaver. I'm an owner and occupant of 1035 Darling Street in the East Central District. Members of the City Council, thank you for this opportunity to address you all in regards to the East Central Community Plan and zoning amendments. Council members, I have yet to have any particular issues with any of the work you have all done, and as such, I am generally supportive of your hard work. However, before you are a series of proposals that have flaws, and if enacted, the damage cannot be undone. Instead of working on my undergraduate research, my concern tonight is with the amendments 6 and 11 addressing accessory dwelling units and cottage lots. Council members, I speak for more than just myself when I say accessory dwelling units in the R15 zoned areas of the East Central District are unwelcome. The compromise of yesterday that allowed these areas to be zoned solely for single-family homes should remain. I am not alone in saying that that compromise was taken into consideration when I purchased my home. I have had the displeasure of being all too familiar with living in areas where ADUs are commonplace and they are a nuisance. The further expansion of accessory dwelling units is not a saving grace for our neighborhoods, but rather it will be part of its decline. I have been quite vociferous in warning that ADUs today are tomorrow's duplexes. The reality is that Ogden cannot already oversee unlawful rental units now, and this plan is in effect an amnesty for those already violating city ordinance and an invitation to push the issue further. What is being marketed to us as granny flats, where grandma can reside in her small unit and rent out the house out front, is a farce. The reality will be homeowners will be able to offer double occupancy of their previously single-family zoned lots, even if the intent and wording of the amendment says otherwise. Instead of helping low-income households transition from renters to homeowners, this will further the issue and continue the cycle of poverty. Plans like the Wonder Block project will do more to address housing than ADUs will ever accomplish. More importantly, proposals like Wonder Block project will be able to do one thing that ADUs and cottage homes neglect most often. They will be able to provide parking. Already in areas of Ogden, even where ADUs are not allowed, I see cars parked on lawns, streets filled with cars, and cars partially parked in driveways blocking sidewalks. Consider those who rely on sidewalks on a daily basis, especially the elderly and disabled. If we are failing to address the issues of parking now without ADUs, imagine the issue will look like if we have more. While I don't have the luxury of addressing all the other issues that ADUs will present to us, like the effect on crime, property values, noise, and neighborhood cohesion, please consider each of these factors deserve their own conversation, and none of them fare well in the face of expanding ADUs as they are now. Council members, if I can ask for just one compromise on the matters before you tonight. One, please keep ADUs out of the R15 zone areas of the East Central District. On behalf of many homeowners and residents there, ADUs will further divide between the abled and the disabled, the prosperous and the impoverished, and the homeowners and the renters. Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. Okay, anybody else in the chambers? Mr. Pate?
Travis Pate, lifelong resident. Essentially, my driver's license and birth certificate have the same address, which I don't think very many people can boast. So the dynamic that I see with regards to the overhaul neighborhood, if you haven't had the chance, I actually went and just did the UVX, which is their bus rapid transit in Provo-Orem area. And the only thing that would be relatively close to our neighborhood is the Joaquin district, which is right next to BYU campus. The BYU nature of that campus has actually redefined that neighborhood. A lot of the single family homes have been torn down for apartments. And I worry about the rezoning of 25th Street just as a carte blanche. We already have that opportunity for business oriented aspects, and it's called a non-conforming use permit. So that's a greater protection than what this currently allows. I fear that land banking will become an issue, similar to 12th Street between Lincoln and Grant. There's an amazing number of historic cottages and other things right there, completely demolished for the land banking and the higher density of units that are there on 12th Street. And there's no protections against demolition other than those sites that are individually listed on the historic resources. And so I'd say prior to approving this map, that needs to be taken into consideration. And I celebrate that you guys have joint work sessions with council and the RDA board. That's great. That's one group of individuals. But I think the Landmarks Commission, Weaver County Heritage Foundation, and also just as far as the R9 rezone, the Eccles Art Center board, the public notice is given in 10 days in advance. That's not time for them to get it to their board. And also the public notices could easily include your work session. Work session on this day, public hearing on this particular day, because I think there are inputs that are presented there, and also even your feedback that you don't get just, so to speak, online or reading notes. And so I think the aspect of redefining an entire neighborhood in the guise of affordability, we just spent $700,000 of state historic preservation office money doing unit reduction through that whole neighborhood. And now we're just going to go back and slap them in the face and say, yeah, we really don't care. We have the potential of just changing this. So my points today would be, do not rezone the R2s, the R1s, essentially because it becomes a de facto R2, because we don't have the police stats that say how many backyards they now have to go into, and the danger that poses to our police force to try to enforce, oh, do we have another unit back there? And let alone the fire protection for that area. We've seen some horrendous fires sadly, and the protections haven't been there. So don't rezone those two things, and then the R9 zone is premature until we actually get more hands on that aspect. So thank you. And please ride UVX if you have the chance. Run down there and check out the neighborhood. It's free.
Thanks, Travis. Okay, not seeing anybody else. We'll go online. Okay. We're going to start with Angel Castillo.
Good evening, City Council. Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. I'd like to thank Mr. Brierly for his presentation and for his hard work. When I joined the Planning Commission in 2018, these were discussions that I was having with other planning commissioners looking down the barrel at our housing affordability problem. And it is a problem in the fact that the AMI for a home, or not AMI, sorry, the average median cost for a home in Ogden is for a single family home is $410,000, which is prohibitive for our police, first year teachers, first responders, people that we need in our community. So I am generally in favor of this plan because it's been what I've been asking for a very long time with regards to allowing accessibility to our workforce that is imperative to us, teachers, police, fire, first responders. When it comes to some of the public comments, I do understand some concerns, and those aren't necessarily indicative of the actual plan itself. I'm always surprised when there is pushback for ADUs, as Utah is a conservative property rights state. And so long as we are following legal code and not infringing on other people's enjoyment of their property, I see property rights as being a main thing that people should do. I remember when these discussions first started, I remember groups of people coming in and telling their ADU stories to the Planning Commission. I heard over and over many missionary stories of people coming here and getting started here, just returning from their mission or coming here for their mission and loving Ogden, finding a home and buying a home. So ADUs don't necessarily equal drugs and crime. What this particular plan will do is somewhat what one of the most successful developments in Utah has done, and that is Daybreak, where there is staged phases of affordability throughout a community with a design plan so that people may move within the community. Pretty much everyone wants to buy a home but cannot afford to do so. And cottage lots that are located within a transit line, therefore most people will not have two cars if they are near a transit line, and ADUs will allow people to do this. I think that what we should consider is looking at some legislature that prevents iBuyers and private equity firms from owning homes as opposed to people. Dallas and Atlanta are doing this, as well as other states, and it's something that we want to take a look at so that we can make sure that we are actually giving our citizens an opportunity to purchase small starter ADUs or cottage homes. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Adam.
Yes, can you guys hear me? Sorry, so I was just trying to speak on the matter of the property on 305 Harrison. Is that okay if I still talk about that? I was having technical difficulties.
Sorry, we actually already took action on that item. Our apologies, Adam.
You can do it during public.
Okay,
Yeah,
no worries.
if you would like to hang tight for a little while, we got a lot of people here for public comment at the end of this meeting if you want to wait till then.
Sure.
Sorry we
Sounds
missed
good.
you, bud. Okay. Seeing no more other hands raised online. Anything else in the crowd? Okay,
Chair, may I ask a clarifying question?
you sure can.
I believe, in my understanding for ADUs, there is a parking requirement. Just wanted to clarify that. If you register an ADU or build something new, you do have a parking requirement.
Yes, that's right.
What about?
Sorry, I'm an expert because I've just done this.
Can you remind us what is
What
it?
it is?
It's one space for the ADU, is that right? Two spaces. Yeah, you have to have two side-by-side spaces outside the front yard.
Barton, I know it's your first time. Can we get you to speak into the mic?
Yes.
Okay, we
two
got
side-by-side spaces on the site.
Okay, we got actually a number of questions. How about parking concerns that were mentioned, or beyond just the ADU concerns?
Yeah, so people drive cars, and they do have places to park. The amendment itself only changes parking requirements for the cottage lots, which would require one parking space. And in the R9, there are some reductions if you do things like if you provide bus passes to your residents or provide bicycle parking or some other things, you can actually do a reduction in there. Otherwise, the parking requirements stay the same. I will say that cars are part of our life, and that because East Central is central, it provides an opportunity for people who have one car or drive less to be able to live here. If you put the same number of homes, out on the edges, all those will be driving through this community and back and forth to their homes. So it's really an opportunity to lessen overall travel by having homes more central.
Okay, thanks, Barton. I saw you taking notes. I think we're all taking notes on the questions too.
Yeah.
Before we get to the rest of the list, I think you kind of skipped over the public outreach that supported this process. Can you just briefly review the public outreach before tonight?
Yeah, so we've had 2 open houses on that. We did several flyers. We had a poll that people could answer on their smartphones. We did pop up at the stop, where we just went to each of the BRT stops and put up a tent and talked to whoever walked by. We had opportunities for comments online for like over a year, and plus planning commission workshops and planning commission hearings.
Okay. What was the feedback you heard generally about ADUs at that time?
I heard a number of people speak very eloquently in favor, and several people speak very eloquently in opposition, and I think you've heard a good representative of that. I would say that it was significantly more in favor of doing accessory dwelling units than not, but I don't want to, like I said, the input was very articulate in both ends.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask a follow-up?
Yes,
question
please.
To that,
Yeah.
just someone mentioned, that we had the Diversity Commission and some other groups involved in that feedback.
Yes.
What is the role like the Landmarks Commission play and groups like that in the discussion?
The only thing we really had discussion with the Landmarks Commission was on this issue of painting homes in East Central, and we're not changing that. But yes, we did go to the Diversity Commission and got their feedback and on how to reach out. That's why we did all of our communications were bilingual. You could take the survey in Spanish, and we tried to find some locations where those communities, this is a large Hispanic community. We tried really to reach out to that community and did some extra efforts, like going to places where it's a popular Hispanic community and tried to post flyers there and talk to people there.
Okay, thanks.
Chair, I have one question for Barton.
Go ahead.
Mr. Jones brought up something that probably is a separate issue, and that's changing the name of the community.
Yes.
It's a recurring theme over the last, since I've been aware. Doesn't seem unreasonable, but could you explain maybe the process that he or they that are interested might engage to get that done?
So it's actually interesting if you read the plan. one of the sections of the plan is we ought to consider renaming it. So it's, but as I understand, when it went through, the choice was to keep it as East Central. So I think if there's interest in renaming it, I think if the council's interested, we could come back and do a process and sort of a mini process and look at renaming the community.
And there may be some council members that would sponsor that, wouldn't there be?
Well, the only thing I was going to say too is it seems like there are several different areas within East Central that have different names as well. Now we have the Nine Rails Creative District as part of it. At one point, like my area was the Trolley District. I mean, there are several different little pockets that have different names too. And I understand what people say, but I'm really proud to say that I live in East Central Ogden. So I think maybe it's also how we kind of think about it. Maybe that would be more of how people might think it's negative, which I think it's very positive because I love living there. So, but I think, yeah, I mean, you could throw it out to the community and see what they might say.
I don't, up north it happened, the Ron Clare community is now the Mount Lewis community. There was a stigma that didn't apply anymore, and so they wanted to rename.
Yeah, and this is
I
more
don't think
about a
that's
direction.
unreasonable.
It's like
so.
a place. It's just about directions and a
Yeah.
place in the community. So,
and your point is very well taken, that it's, there's already, a flavor in the different pockets, and so that would be something that would need to be worked out amongst the
there's the
residents.
Eccles district in there. I don't know. So there's
Sure.
like just different pockets that have.
But
names.
it is a process, and I think that people ought to be, if they want to engage in that, they ought to be able to. So
Yeah, absolutely. If people want to rename it, go for it.
Okay.
go see Barton.
Yeah.
Who's on
Yeah,
it first.
ask him how to do that.
Yeah, I'll say one of the suggestions in the plan was Central Bench.
There you go.
As another name also. And Trolley District was suggested.
So, Barton, guys, if I missed anything on this list, I'm just trying to recount the questions we got in the public. Feel free to chime in, but how about the questions about ADA compliance and concerns? Where did that?
Yes, so if you do a live-work unit by building code, you're required to do ADA accessible units. And it's really a civil rights issue. It's a legal issue and it's a civil rights issue. It is burdensome, I will say, if you're trying to convert a home, because you got to think about a ramp into the building, changing your front door. What about your restroom? And it would be expensive. And so I think it will discourage the Matchbox car store that wants to open up in there. But you got to balance it. It's a civil rights issue, and I don't think there's really a way around that.
And if you want to have live work units as a component, you'd have to have that. So.
Yeah.
Okay. How about the roof line issues related to ADUs?
As we looked at it, we saw a number of models of accessory dwelling units, and doing it one above the garages, as I mentioned, is a very attractive option to doing another one beside it, because you just leave yourself some yard room using the one structure. We did a number of models of what you could fit on a lot, and with our design standards, it's really tough in most cases. We looked at some models and tried to do it on some particular lots, and it is very difficult to do that. And so, not say it can't be done, but it just depends on the lot. And basically, you're required to have a pitched roof on the ADU and on the house, and they're supposed to match. But once you get a pitched roof above a garage, it becomes very tall, and you just exceed the height limit in a lot of cases. So
Okay. All right. What about shellac?
I was just going to bring that
Toxic
up too.
chemicals.
I mean, there's
Yes.
You can definitely call someone for like
Yeah.
a smell nuisance or something, right? Because that's probably not okay, even if it wasn't an artist, but it was just somebody else doing something over there, right?
Yes, and the way we addressed it in the code is we said, if you do an art studio and we basically can't tell you're there, you're permitted. If there's something that is going to, it could be noise, it could be fumes, it could be vibration.
Right.
If you do any of those, because we thought about and creative use could be a garage band. It's artistic use. Music is an art. So if it's anything that the neighbors are going to complain about, then it's got to be conditional use, and then we can look at specific requirements. Oh, you're doing a kiln, or you're doing these chemicals. How do you address those through the conditional use permit? So that doesn't guarantee that, you know, an artist doesn't dump something down the drain that could be toxic, but it is some protection.
So somebody could call like code enforcement or something if they were having a problem like that?
Yes.
Okay, so tell Amy.
Yes.
I don't want her vegetables dying.
Or being
Or her
toxic.
dying from the vegetables.
Well,
Yeah.
of course. I mean, that goes without saying.
Preserving
That goes
not.
That's why I don't eat vegetables, by the way.
Shalatsing, right?
That's why you can't do 22 push-ups.
So I get to 22 push-ups. I'm getting to it. These planners, man, they are funny people. Okay. All that's left in my list was Travis Pate's comments about the use of non-conforming use permits and the blanket application of the rezone.
Yeah, I will note that one of the concerns was we did have an endemic in East Central of really schlocky additions to homes that were used for apartments, and there was a big effort to return a lot of those to homes. And the current rules do not allow you to add more units to an existing structure. So you can't take a house and make it a duplex. You can't take a house and add on to it and make it a fourplex. So that's covered. And just the live work units, again, it's taking advantage of the bus rapid transit. And frankly, we sat at the stops and looked at these houses like, if I want to get my hair done, I could hop off the stop here, and it'd be great if some of these houses, could do things like that. So it was just a choice. Like I said, a lot of our input wasn't unanimous, but there appeared to be more support for that kind of use than detraction from it.
Our apologies on behalf of the media. Schlocky. Schlocky and shellac is getting fun. So, okay. I don't have anything else, you guys. Do you have anything else to ask Barton? He already asked it, so what the heck?
Yeah, it's 80% of the height of the...
Okay, thanks. 80% of the height, thanks. Okay, if there's no other questions or concerns, we can entertain action on any of these items that have been addressed.
Chair, I think based on the number of comments that we got about ADUs, I feel kind of compelled to talk about that just a little bit.
Okay.
This has been something that the city has considered and embarked on for easy 12 to 15 years in some form or another. And it's also clear to most of us that these are already happening. People have put in a little kitchenette in the basement, and they move people in, and we don't like that. We don't like when people just do a little personal add-on without getting permitted and inspected and licensed and all of those things. And so allowing ADUs at least encourages people to go through the process to become legal. There are some ADUs that are detached from the main dwelling. Those, of course, need building permits and inspections, and because they will be built as an ADU, would need to be licensed. They allow people to get into residences earlier than maybe they normally could afford to, because there's some additional income that comes in from the ADU, and it allows people to stay in their residence at an older age after they've become a little infirm, because people can come and help with yard work and things of that nature, and to help them with any health issues that may be that they may have. So I think it really encourages home ownership to the extent that, which is a huge Boone, and Ogden is in need of ways for people to own homes. We have a huge percentage of our housing stock that is rentals. I guess you could argue one way or the other, but it's my opinion that I think maybe it's an unhealthy balance. I think we need to have some more for purchase properties, and ADUs help to do that. No question, there will be some people, as there already is, that try to get away with something. And I don't know, I don't think denying these is going to help that issue.
Thanks.
So, I'm certainly open to other people's feedback on that. I'd love to hear your comments.
Well, we've gone. It's been a long journey on ADUs.
It has.
We've had feedback for a number of years. Any other comments on
I
that?
just wanted to clarify too, just because I've just done this, when you first build the property with like a living unit in it, if it's not going to be an ADU, then you don't have to get it registered.
It doesn't need to be licensed.
Right, it doesn't have to be
But it will
licensed.
still need to be inspected because of the building.
Right, when you build it and create that space, right? Because if it's a
Yeah.
family member, then it doesn't have to be a licensed
True.
ADU.
Okay.
So are you ready for a motion?
12 of them. Well, we've got some.
11.
We've got some housekeeping on a couple cleanup items. Let's start with that.
Well, then, Chair, I would move that we amend ordinances 2022-49 and 2022-54 as follows. Amend ordinance 2022-49, changing the code referenced in section 15-42-5 from 15-13-42 to 15-13-43. And amending ordinance 2022-54 in section 15-37-5.c.1.c. I hope you're getting this all down. Changing the word translucent to transparent.
Second.
That's a lot. So we have a motion by Councilmember Heyer, second by Councilmember Chaburka to do all that stuff. This is a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those changes are fixed. Thanks for that.
And Chair, I also move that we adopt all ordinances listed under agenda item 6.b.III related to the East Central Community Plan and zoning amendments as amended.
I will say aye. Can we're okay to do
Second.
all that?
Second.
Or second, I mean, sorry. We're okay to do all that?
If
One motion?
if there's no changes, we'll
Yep,
find out how people
perfect.
feel about that.
Then I will second that.
Okay, just to be clear, there are 11 ordinances proposed for the East Central Community Plan and zoning amendments. Councilmember Hires made a motion to adopt all of those, seconded by Councilmember Blair. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Chaburka?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Ritchie?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Vice Chair Lopez?
Aye.
Chair Nadolski?
Aye, that passes. Okay. Well, there's certainly, we got a fair bit of feedback tonight, but thank you, Barton, for all the years of feedback. That was a long process, so Angela's vote goes a long way for me too. So, thanks.
Chair,
Okay.
if I,
Yeah.
one quick comment. Just for those that came here and spoke in opposition to these changes, I just want to say, I just want to tell you thank you. It's always hard for me to, when there's, good arguments on both issues, and it's hard to make a decision. I just want you to know that your comments really do mean a lot to me, and I think we all probably go through the same. As I'm processing how I'm going to vote, I have a really hard time because I hear really good arguments on both sides. So I just want you to know that I still really appreciate your comments and your and showing up and airing those comments to us. So thank you.
Thank you.
May I make one comment too? I appreciate that.
Sure can.
Vice Chair Lopez. I was just going to say too, I mean, I know that parking is really a challenge for us in so many different ways in our residential areas. And I live pretty close to where the new stop will be for the bus, or the OGX, I should say. And I'm really excited about that because we got rid of one car, and then we're hopefully going to get rid of one more after that's online, right? It's like we're in this transition space where we can't do it just yet because we don't have that super wonderful mode of transportation. And so I hope that other people are kind of transitioning at the same time, especially living in these areas where it is more condensed. And I'm so excited about the day when I won't need my car sitting out front. I'll just be able to walk down to the bus. I can already walk downtown very easily and do things, but I want to be able to get to other places too. So I think it's something we're all going to be transitioning over the next little bit, so that then we don't have to depend on cars, and hopefully parking isn't such a big deal.
All right, thanks. Okay, let's move to item number 7, reports from administration. This is the sales tax and tax increment pledge agreement for the Wonder Block joint venture. Do we have Laura Lewis here still somewhere?
She came in. She's here.
I don't see her. Where is she at? There she. Okay, there she is.
She's behind the post sitter.
Laura, are you going to break down why we're talking about this tonight in this
I'll have to break
meeting?
down.
Break it down. Just don't say shellac.
Okay, I promise not to say that. I can go through the entire presentation we went through before, but I'm betting that nobody wants me to do that. So I'm going to cut right to the chase. And if you want me to back up, then that's great. So just very high level. You're meeting tonight as a council. You'll also meet as an RDA board. There are actions in each of those boards. The action you're taking tonight is in regard to the sales tax and tax increment pledge agreement related to the Wonder Block joint venture. A slight correction from what I had stated earlier. This resolution does set parameters which allow you to call the public hearing and do the publication and allow for a contestability period for you to hold the hearing in January. But to make it very clear, you're not setting a designated officers kind of pricing committee. You will not do that until after your hearing in January. And so we can't complete any of the bonds without coming back to you for formal action. So any questions about that? Did I catch all that? Okay, Janine? All right, great. All right, so this will fix the maximum par amount of the bonds, the maximum rate, the maximum term, and the maximum discount that we can offer on the bonds. You'll set a public hearing and provide for the publication. And you will be, as we discussed in your work session, this will be to support Wonder Block. The finance plan will be to use tax increment and a commitment from a portion of your BDO revenues every year will be the finance plan, but you'll actually be pledging sales tax in order to get the interest rate down and make it all easier to pay for the bonds.
Okay.
That was a much better brief version, right? Okay.
Super simple. Thanks. Okay, anybody have questions for Laura? Okay, so just to be clear, we're not taking final action tonight on the bonds.
No.
We are just pledging the use of sales tax and tax increment so that you can get to work.
Yes, that is correct.
Coming back to us for some consideration for final action later on January 10th. Okay.
Chair, make a motion now to adopt the proposed resolution 2022-22 and set a public hearing for January 10th, 2023.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Ritchie, second by Councilmember Heyer to adopt proposed resolution 2022-22 and setting public hearing for January 10th, 2023. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Ritchie?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Traburka?
Aye.
Vice Chair Lopez?
Aye.
Chair Nadolski?
Aye, that passes. Okay, thanks for coming tonight. We'll see you next week. Just kidding.
Oh, you'll see me in a few minutes.
I know.
it's like a Groundhog Day.
Okay, so appreciate your patience, you guys. We've had a lot of business to handle tonight. So this is your opportunity. This is public comment. It's your opportunity to address the council regarding topics or concerns on any topic. Just before we start, I just want to say one thing. We probably have a lot of people that want to comment tonight, which is totally okay. If you hear someone commenting that's consistent with what you're going to say, feel free to just add your voice to their comments and Let's try and be efficient if we can.
I gotta
Thanks.
get it on my phone.
Okay. Can you state your name again for us? And then
Oh, I'm Teresa Holmes. I live in Ogden, lifelong Ogden resident, ex-volunteer at Union Station. So let's see here. Hold on a sec. Should have had this ready, but my phone was about ready to go down.
do you want to let the next guy go while you pull that up, and then we'll restart your time?
Okay, wait a second here. This is really short what I'm going to do this time.
Okay. Whenever you're ready.
I should have had it ready before I came up here. This is from my friend Victoria Betts. Her father was Reed Betts, and he was a colonel in the Air Force and fought in World War II. During his earlier life, he had an interest in guns, winning many marksmanship awards. In the 1930s, as a war, he picked up the hobby of collecting guns and displaying them in gun shows. When our family moved to Utah, Dad took a great interest in Browning firearms, and after retiring, learned as much as he could about the guns themselves as well as the Browning family. He was a friend of Val Browning's and often visited him. In 1979, he founded Browning Collectors Association, which has grown into a global organization with thousands of members in their newsletters. They often refer to the Great John M. Browning Firearms Museum in Ogden, Utah. One of the few things that put Ogden on the map, other than the railroad, was John M. Browning and his inventions. The Browning automatic rifle, BAR, was well known for helping to win World War I. With a few others, my father envisioned a museum in Ogden dedicated to the work of John M. Browning. The Browning family arranged to have their many firearms taken out of bank vaults and delivered to our home, where Dad spent many hours in a labor of love to clean and polish those guns. The museum was born, and the history of John M. Browning and his inventions was established. Are you guys sure we want to move our Browning firearms out of our museum or our railroad? We're famous for the railroad and Browning firearms. So why are we dumping the trains at Union Station? It doesn't make any sense. People come from everywhere to see our guns and our trains. I was at the gun show because I was working a home show next door, and I mentioned that Browning firearms might be moving out of the station, and they were about ready to have a panic attack, you know? I mean, this is our heritage. This is our history. And you can't just let other people come in and say, hey, let's get rid of it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Nathan Sutherland. I'm an East Bench resident. I'm just here to talk about what I would call lack of trust in our police department. And I get to this from a personal story and from one in my neighborhood. 2 weeks ago, or no, last week, my car was broken into. We ended up finding everything, but whomever had done it had just thrown everything as they walked down the street. I called the police, and I was told that the Ogden City Police doesn't ever respond to vehicular thefts and break-ins, unless there may be like broken windows and whatnot. But something as simple as, I left my door unlocked. This was pretty surprising because I lived in Savannah, Georgia when I was in the Army, and we had that happen 3 times. People go around every night checking, and the few nights of the 2 or 3 years you live there, you forget to. And in Savannah, they encouraged it every single time, even if nothing was taken. They wanted you to call the police department, and they sent an officer out to look. And this was because it did a few things. Number one is it built trust in the community. You had active engagement with the police force. Number two is that they were able to take a database. Maybe they pulled a fingerprint. Maybe they found a piece of hair. And then when they did finally catch the suspect and had him in custody, they were able to charge that suspect with multiple crimes, further putting a stop to this petty theft. When I called Ogden, I ended up calling twice. Both times I was told that that just doesn't occur, that my option was to go onto a website and file the complaint. The website is antiquated at best. It timed out. It didn't accept responses, and I wasn't able to file my complaint, or the incident, sorry. And so what I found is that that really added on to what had happened in my neighborhood across the street. My neighbor was broken into, and when she called, within 24 hours, the case was closed. They said they didn't have enough evidence. She lost jewelry, again, just further losing trust in the police department that's there to help us. Maybe they're understaffed. I'm sure there are issues that I don't fully understand as to why they're not responding, but I think that having that engagement with the community, I left my car unlocked. That was my fault. I then the next day saw the people who I think were doing it. And it's a group of teenagers walking around the neighborhood. We believe it's them because they yelled, "Don't do that, their door's open," as we were in our front room and a kid was running up. When I called the police department the second time, they told me that in the future to just try to call right away. I was driving around the neighborhood looking. I lost quite a lot of faith in the Ogden Police Department and their ability to accurately respond to incidences. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Sorry to hear that.
Hello, it's good to see you all again. This is Kerry Wayne from Marriott Slaterville. I've written to the mayor several times. I've written to y'all several times. We still have the fugitive dust problem. We still have, I've always wanted waterfront property, but I always figured it was going to come from the California side when it slid off into the Pacific. But we've got 10 blocks of water. I wrote to you back in October of last year when the retention pond breached its banks, left water there all winter long. Spring, we had so many mosquitoes. Every time it gets above 40 degrees for 3 days, we get mosquitoes. It's time that something be done. The landscaping has not been completed over on the west side of the warehouses. Doesn't look like it's going to be done this year at all. Yours was, the east side was done 18 months ago. What are we going to do? When are you going to take some action? I wouldn't be so pissed off except for the fact you never respond and no action is ever taken. And so when you say, well, I refer that out to, I've called code enforcement twice on the water. Nothing happens. We had mosquito abatement come out and spray, which is a ridiculous solution to something that needs to be solved. It brings somebody out there, grade that area, get rid of the puddles. I mean, it's not puddles, it's ponds, because again, I might open it as a fishing resort if you guys don't fix it. But again, we need something done over there. To keep ignoring us. We asked you when you met with Marriott Slaterville. We told you something needs to be done about the water. You says, oh, if it continues to be a problem, Boyer will take care of it. Boyer has done nothing. They've made that mess over there and they've left it for 18 months. The fugitive dust, I got blasted so bad. In fact, I actually found a bucket over there by the side of my house, which I knew was empty, had a ½ inch of dust in it. Because of the fact that all summer long we have been just annihilated with fugitive dust. Nobody is doing anything to solve it. Boyer's not doing anything. It's your development. It's your property. You need to do something to solve the problem. I want to be a good neighbor, but you're not being a good neighbor because of the fact you will not act on what has happened. When I know Marriott Slaterville told Boyer when they filled in the natural drainage, you can't put clay on top of that. Fill that drain in with clay because it won't let the water seep down, go away. It just sits there and becomes a pond. And like I said, it's enough of an insult to put those warehouses there. And then to leave it in the condition that you've left it is just deplorable. I mean, you really need to do something. this is not going to work if you keep just ignoring it. Again, I'm not looking for a whole winter of a pond out in front of my yard. There's no reason for it. I'd like you to do something. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Can you
Before I speak,
can you move that microphone down?
Oh, yeah. First, before I speak, I was just gonna say to Mr. Blair, I know your daughter, and I really liked her. So, anyways,
I told her you were here tonight, and she said to tell you hello.
why is green space important in Ogden? It is important for kids to play, animals to run, and people to get exercise. I have grown up here my entire life. I know it will change, but it should be for the better. I like Ogden because of the access to nature. One of my favorite trails is the Birdsong Trail. There are many others we should preserve. Outdoor space in Ogden to keep a natural beauty of the city. Thank you for considering my comments, Eloise Braden.
Can you state your name for the record?
Eloise Braden.
That's what you said at the end. Thank you, Eloise.
Sorry, I'm just going to make a quick follow-up. That's my daughter. She has grown up here her entire life, and keeping Ogden green and keeping outdoor space for kids, I feel like is very important. So please consider that because she's grown up in that.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Welcome back, Coach.
Come again?
Welcome back, Coach.
Thank you. And tonight was a game night, so we're on. I've been here a lot recently. I was here on October 4th, again on November 1st, and I'm going to be here every Tuesday. We've got 30 days left. The time clock is clicking so fast on those 3 properties that I brought to you. And at the last council meeting, what I heard over and over again from Kim Bouchard, from Mr. Councilman Nadolski, was take risk to help Ogden, make Ogden better. It's a proud moment for Ogden soccer. 6 of our Ogden soccer teams finished in the top 2 in their state divisions this season. The coaches, players, and families are true ambassadors of the Ogden Champs Initiative. I'm proud to applaud their success. To help support these athletes and 83,000 plus members, our community, we need you, Mr. Mayor, and Ogden City Council to take risk to help make Ogden better by acquiring and protecting the 3 properties for open space and parklands. Please use these following excerpts to support your action. Number 1, parks and open space are essential elements of the community, providing a range of benefits. Not only provide place to recreate, they are also places to get away from the hustle bustle of the city, to meet friends and family, come together for community and neighborhood events, and be part of a greater outdoor within earshot of home. More specifically, parks and open space can promote health and wellness, foster human development, provide places to celebrate cultural activities and diversity, strengthen community image in Ogden, sense of place. Number 2, it's recommended that the city be cognizant and seize opportunities to add park acreage as they arise in order to keep pace with the city's increasing population and park needs. Number 3, it should be noted that if the city were to maintain its current LOS, an additional 32 acres of parkland would be needed by 2028, and 20 more acres be needed to meet build out by 2045, totaling 52 additional acres you all need to allocate by 2045. The city, there are 6 gaps. Number 4, there are 6 gaps in citizens' access to parks, 3 of which are significant gaps in our citizenry access. I'm going to skip 5, 6, go to number 7. Acquire sites suitable for additional baseball, softball, and soccer fields according to the assessment for sports fields and other park amenities. The city currently has a need for 1 baseball field and 9 soccer fields. In other words, 20 acres are needed right now. All of these have come from your plan. This is your plan. These are all things that have come from your plan. Please take the initiative, the action to secure these 3 properties.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, next.
Good evening. I'm Steve Jones. I'm an Ogden resident. And the last meeting, I spoke about the initiative we have with a Facebook page to help save the museums at Union Station. I'd like to report that Facebook page now has approximately 6,000 people commenting and reading that page. So it's a gold mine of information, and I encourage you to take a look at it. Feel free to call me at any time that you have questions in that area. The other thing I would like to recommend very highly is that I think that the open house and the fact-finding session tonight on the Wonder Block was extremely helpful. I would encourage you to do the same thing for Union Station post haste. One of the things that are happening is that people are very concerned. They simply do not know the full story about what's happening. And so I think that open house would be a great starting point for a plan that would really remove a lot of uncertainty and start the process towards enhancing what we have rather than the perception that it's being destroyed. So the other reason I think this is really important, the parking segment tonight. Talked about, paid parking. Well, Union Station and 25th Street and Wonder Block are really all one ecosystem that interacts with each other. And I think that before any decisions are made about the parking, you really need to know the total impact of it. And Union Station and the parking there was not talked about at all tonight to any significant extent. So I think that is a very important step that should be taken before any final decisions are made about the parking situation. So,
can you state your name real quick just before you?
Sure, I'm Steve Jones.
Thank you.
Sure thing. Thank you.
No, appreciate it. Coach.
Hey, Council, how you doing? My name is Oscar Gonzalez, and I just want to support the passion that Steve has for this topic and Eloise's comments. One thing Steve mentioned as far as what was written in the paperwork that is provided by the city is, parks and open space is good for that hustle and bustle. I work 50 hours a week, and those hours that I get off of work to be able to spend with my team are just probably the greatest moments that I get to enjoy for myself and for the kids that I coach. It provides exercise for them, which provides exercise for me. It keeps them off the screens. It keeps them engaged, motivated, having a good time, right? And it'd be great to, and sometimes when we go to certain parks, they're kind of saturated with other teams and other people that have that same idea. So to be able to have more open space throughout our city would be wonderful. Not only for a resident, a community member, but also for those visiting teams and people from other cities that come to our parks and just say, wow, like that was a great field. That was a good game at this park, or just that memory of coming to Ogden and being hosted well by great land and great people here. Thank you.
Thanks, Oscar.
Hello, my name is Alan Jones. I'm an East Bench resident. If you try to name any of these areas trolley districts, you better well have a trolley. I got a couple of things on my list and everything. First of all, I'm very interested in what properties you're talking about, so I'll talk to you afterwards. And the second thing quickly is the museums. I think that the Union Station, the public engagement on the Union Station in particular, and in respect for the museums, is paramount. If you need to bend over backwards to get the public engaged in that, because that is a really touchy subject with a lot of people, and things are perceptively not going well there. But the topic of my rant, I apologize that I haven't been here for so long. COVID got me sidetracked and you wouldn't let me come for a while. I got in a bad habit. Roads. The roads in Ogden are deplorable. And I understand that it's a very expensive, very difficult thing to, in fact, do something about, save one thing. The reason why our roads are so deplorable is because of the sheer amount of maintenance that is going on into the roads. People cutting in, accessing the sewers and the infrastructure below. The problem is the patch jobs. The oversight of the patch jobs is non-existent. Over in front of my house, there's 2 places where they've dug up, and there's now a trench in the street. It jars. It's terrible. You look up in front of Rancho Market and things of that nature, the road is in horrible shape, and it's because of the patch jobs. Where is the oversight of the road department that is supervising the patching of the roads? I understand people have to dig holes in the roads. I understand we have some aging infrastructures and that sort of thing, but there is a person in Ogden City whose job it is to maintain and verify that the contractors are patching the roads and doing it properly, and that person is not doing his job. And so I gleefully hope that someone can do something about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, members of the council. Thanks for having me here, and thank you for your time. My name is Ryan McDonald, and I've been a resident with Ogden for 95% of my life, and I have a family here as well. The piece that I want to bring up is going to be on the same. I'm on the sides of the coaches over here as well. Not only am I on the board of directors for the Egyptian Theater Foundation and other pieces in the art community, I'm also a father in this community who have daughters who are playing soccer, and I'm also a coach of the AYSO. I don't know that I'll be able to echo articulately the same ways that they did on that initiative, but I do support that initiative, and I believe that there are, I should be here in a sense because just so there's more voices saying that same message in that sense. Earlier tonight, and I live next to Harrison and 2nd Street, there was a property that's there. There's a property that's right next to a school, and it was approved. There's a motion to rezone that property for residential area. And so I do see that there's opportunities where we can have that type of development. But in this case, with these 3 properties, they're next to another park. So it's an easy development, and we can then continue to grow and not restrict sports among our youth. It's such a passionate piece that we also have youth members here as well speaking on it. And you could probably throw a dart in any direction and land on a great study that would say how beneficial sports are for children and for youth as they grow and become better members of our community. I understand that there's not necessarily an economic piece here. Maybe fiscally it won't, but as a community, what we could report in our fiscal year would be absolutely better than the latter. So again, echoing as another voice for the pieces they were chatting on. I thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
My name is Cullen Chapman, and I have a request for every member of the City Council. Tonight, when you drive home, go up 26th Street until you reach Fowler Avenue, where I live. As I said, it's an old neighborhood. Inadequate parking. You'll see that the cars are parked on either side of the street, and there is not enough room for 2 cars coming in opposite directions to safely pass each other. One of the cars has to pull over where they can find a place so the other car can pass. This is what happens when you don't have adequate off-street parking. So that is why I'm requesting that every one of you actually drive through my neighborhood and see how bad it can be when you don't have adequate off-street parking. And by the way, you can also notice how bad the street condition is. As this gentleman mentioned, I just had to replace my entire front suspension because it was hammered to pieces by the bad road conditions in this old part of East Ogden. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll try to honk when we go by. We'll honk our horns when we go by tonight. Come on up. No, you're good. You're good. Never mind. I'm funny. I think I'm funnier than I am. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Tara Jorgens, and I apologize for my voice. I sound quite horrible, but I just wanted to echo what the coach has been talking about green space, but I want to approach it from a different viewpoint. I've been a very passionate member of this community, both in the resources we have with our mountains and our green space, but also with the youth. Within this community, I've worked with our troubled youth or high-risk youth for over 25 years, and with that time, I have worked in engaging their families, getting them services, but nothing compares to connecting them to the community. When you can get them out in the community, you can do therapy, you can do, groups, you can do all of this stuff for 3 to 6 months, but what really connects them to the community are the connections that they make with their coaches, with the resources that we have within this community, including the parks. Marshall White's been a huge asset for us. On top of that, getting them out there coaching, those are the contacts that they make and live with for the rest of their life, that they come back to are those coaches. And the coaches make such a huge impact. And so I am here to just implore you to keep those green spaces, especially when I see all this high density housing going in, knowing that there are so many kids that will be coming into this community that need places to go. They need this not just for their health, but for both their mental health and well-being, and making those connections that are positive within our community and the community that I love so much. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sorry. Can't clap except for when you mention the changing of the name of East Central, because that's just awesome.
Hi, my name is Oliver. I'm involved in soccer, with the Ogden soccer. But for my family, I have years for YSO, 5 years started. So now I think it's more family soccer and sports diversity. And it's coming a lot of people in the tournaments. Maybe you make a lot of money for every restaurants, foods. Maybe it's a good idea make a big spaces. Now it's a time for indoor soccer. So this team, back team. So it's too many teams for very small place. So maybe the city make more for the kids, for the families, better people. So it's coming with the sports, better athletes. So I think it's good if you investment in one good place for sports. So it's tournaments right here. So we pay a lot of money. Example, for a kid, we need to pay 70 for a place, 30 for a little car, and pay reps. So pay for around 120. You multiply for teams. Sometimes it's for 15, 11, but it's too many teams. It's a lot of money and sports, but you need back something for the families and the kids in the better places. And I think it's a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think so.
D.S. Anderson again, longtime resident. Concur with these two young ladies, concur with the guys talking about soccer fields, holding you accountable to your plan, concur the roads are terrible, and give me one more thing. You'll get tired of me. I still have 2.5 minutes I can think. Oh, absolutely concur with leaving the Browning Arms Museum exactly where it is. In fact, I would even overemphasize bringing more community in, and I would absolutely dump money into that instead of moving it around. And also the gentleman from Pleasant View, I believe it is, where the swamp is, let's put a soccer field on that. 2 problems solved. Thank you, gentlemen, ladies. Name.
Thank you.
My name's Teresa Bramwell, and I thought I would be coming to speak to you today about my expansion of non-conforming use that I paid $500 to Ogden City to have you consider, but I'm not, because that was sidetracked long before it ever got to be before you. And I feel a little discriminated against because all the things we've discussed in this meeting today are what I wanted to do with my house. I have a house that was burned by homeless people. I need to rebuild it. It's a historic home. It was built in 1912. It was there before anything else in the community was there. So what I requested was the ability to build a garage on the back of the home for safety and for storage, because there's no outdoor storage allowed in my area, and to build an ADU on top of the garage. That was immediately shut down by the Planning Commission, said I cannot do that. And then they also have told me that I need to remove part of my parking. That I have way too much parking. I need to have less parking. So all these issues that people are bringing up, I already have solved on my own property, or I'm trying to want to solve, or be part of your plan that you've presented, and I've been completely shut down and not even allowed to come to you with my problem. They don't want me to stand in front of you, to tell you my problem, to have my problem be solved. And I think that is a problem. And I feel like I'm very discriminated against. And it's unfair. Because I live in the East Central area. I have a historic home built in 1912 that I have continuously used as a home. I've wanted to comply with all of the things you're trying to do, and I have been told no. And they won't even allow you to hear it. Not even am I being told no, I'm being told no, you can't go before the city council. That's a problem for me and for you and for this city. I don't know how to fix it. How do I fix it? How do I make this situation better? Thank you.
Anybody else in the chambers?
How are y'all this evening? My name is Bill Dodge, and I do not live within Ogden city limits. I was born and raised here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I was born and raised here.
Apologies. Go ahead.
In fact, I'm fourth generation Ogdenite, basically. My kids were all born here, went to Weber State, et cetera, et cetera. And I now live just outside the boundaries in West Haven. And I've also have a big concern with what's going on with the Union Station development. And what brought me into this is I found a document on the internet, and it's titled UTA and Ogden are searching for a developer to build a new Union Station campus. And I'm sure most of you have probably seen it and are aware of it. Inside of it, it includes maps of developments that are to go on around the Union Station, and partially tied in with your Wonder Block project. And what it does is it shows structures being built on both the north and south sides and in front of the Union Station that would in fact eliminate the train museum that's on the south side. There's also verbiage in these documents that indicates that the museums will be moved. So I just want to make sure you guys are aware of all this. Even though I'm outside the boundary, I still come to Ogden all the time. We go to the movies down here. We go to 25th Street all the time. I go to the Hostler show while it's down at the Union Station. I was at the Dia de los Muertos celebration a couple of weeks ago. Made sure and supported that. I just think you all need to make sure exactly what is being pushed forward here, and that it is not allowed to go too far where it can't be stopped. Because those museums need to be left alone. Don't allow this Union Station to turn in to what they've done to the Rio Grande Station in Salt Lake City. If you go look at it, the total character of that station's gone. It's ruined. It's surrounded completely by businesses, and basically it's a facade, and that's all it's worth. This Union Station is probably one of the most important in the country, and it's worth saving. and so are those museums. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
How's it going? My name's Jason Long. I've been a resident in Ogden for 15 years now. Surprisingly, I love it here. I didn't think I would, and it's been a great community to grow in. I'm raising my kids here. I have 5 now. I just wanted to add my voice to the soccer programs here, and just kind of mention I didn't know anything about the Wonder Block stuff and some of these new developments. And as I was reading some of your billboards, parks were kind of big on the list, a big percentage of what the community cares about. Over the years, I've seen those parks be developed, and it's been great for my family as we visit the Adventure Park, 40th Street Park, Monroe Park. I'd love to see locations like Grandview added. We frequent there a lot currently with soccer. Also 4th Street and this location up on Jackson. I'd like to see those areas become parks and open spaces where we can continue to bring our families and experience, different activities together. So just wanted to add that. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else in the chambers? Okay, let's go to, boy, Adam, you've been patient. Let's go to you.
Sure. So, yeah, but my name's Adam. I'm a resident of Ogden City. I was born and raised here. And I just kind of wanted to add to the proposition of building the homes up on Harrison. So, as a county employee and former government employee, I've seen many, homes go up and down all throughout the city, all throughout all the state. And I remember, if I recall, quite a few years back when the Oasis project was a big talk about, putting it downtown, getting the community together, which is also something that I brought to the owners of the property over on Harrison. You see, seeing this area has access to secondary water. Not only does it have access to underground canals up here, constructing more areas like the Oasis Garden up here would be probably, if not one of the best ideas that I think you guys should actually take into consideration. Not to mention these areas are more of a older community, retired people. So bringing the community together where they can actually do something instead of, putting it out in the newsletter to take away your land strip and, put some normal plants or just, or rocks or whatever it is that you guys want to eliminate water usage. I think bringing the community with putting some sort of like a community garden would benefit instead of, building homes, or else we're just going to see ourselves kind of like downtown Salt Lake, building rooftop gardens like the LDS Temple. I don't understand why we would have to go down that route when we have the land and the access to trails. So access to a lot of, homegrown plants that we can easily just put into play here. So I think, saving green space and getting more of that out and about instead of putting up high-rise buildings is something to consider. Not to mention, it does also help us with our bad air that we are kind of victims to. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Okay, and last is Angel Castillo.
Good evening, Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. I apologize I'm not there in person, but I have contracted COVID, and I sent a text to the chair and to Councilmember Chaburka on Sunday, letting them know that I wasn't going to be able to attend the meeting, but I was really looking forward to the discussion and made a request that everything would be held in chambers on microphones so that people who were not there could participate fully and hear what other people's comments were and ask questions. And that didn't happen. And I'm a little salty about that, particularly because Councilmember White had COVID And I find it hard to believe that you would have something occur outside of the chambers that she would not be able to participate in. Part of the reason that I wanted to participate in those discussions is what's happening with the Wonder Block and the bond. The Make Ogden plan is a really good plan. It is by an award-winning company who's done great work, and there's a couple of things happening that are not following that plan. For one, you're not following the episodes, and there is no Gantt chart that shows what's happening and when it's happening. And I don't believe that a company would give you a plan and have you just cherry pick what's in there. And if you go back and you read the plan, it says that the development where the Wonder Block is to be developer-led, and the city is to be leading parks and recs. And everybody in this room has said that they want parks and recs. I want to lift up two things: sunk cost fallacy, say microeconomic theory that you just don't want to stop spending money because you've sunk so much in it, and opportunity cost. When you fund something, you give up the funding for something else. And you're gonna bond or willing to bond without any of the 2019 new CRA rules, which require a budget, a pro forma, a market analysis and demographic, a refined cost benefit, and a fiscal analysis. You haven't seen any of those things. And if you have, they're not publicly available. And they're probably not current if they exist, as according to all of your documents, this has been talked about since 2016. You are doing the people that are sitting in this room telling you that they want parks and recs and people things, kids, streets and roads. Not one of them said that they want Class A office space. So I highly suggest that before you make an investment of millions of dollars that could be buying soccer fields, that you get a current cost benefit fiscal analysis and a pro forma. Thank you.
We'll go to Heath Sato, who has his hand raised online, then we'll go to Travis Payton.
Hi there, Heath Sato, Ogden resident. I wanted to thank everyone for putting together the open house tonight. That was an unusual event of this size for a project like this, and I really appreciated it. I had some good discussions and have some things to chew on before I speak at length on this. Special thanks to Chair Nadolski and the developer for the time they spent speaking with me. I want to speak to Alan's and others' concerns tonight about the conditions of the roads as it relates to the open house you had today. I agree with the sentiments that our roads are a mess due to all the patching, though I don't think it's because someone isn't doing their job. My guess is it's actually because they aren't supplied with a budget to do a proper job. Now, how does this relate to the open house for Wonder Block earlier this evening? Well, I signed up for water outage alerts a few months ago, and I was frankly shocked at how many emails I get. There's a water outage on average daily, sometimes multiple places in a day. And I think a lot of it is due to how much we are putting on that infrastructure credit card. We're using huge amounts of TIF, tax increment financing, a very hard concept for the layman to understand. It took me a long time to wrap my head around it. But we've been using it for more than a decade, and it means tons of our development doesn't pay into supporting our infrastructure. For more than a decade, we've been doing this, and our infrastructure is collapsing beneath our feet, and we can't keep fixing it with duct tape and bubble gum. And we've already raised property taxes to the limit people are willing to stand, so we can't pay for it that way. I'm good with growth. I don't have any issue with the idea of the Wonder Block itself, but I'm concerned about putting yet more load on our infrastructure when there's no property taxes coming in for over a decade on that project as well. If we want to build, we have to shore up the cracking foundation that we've been ignoring in lieu of development first. I'm asking you to stop just putting all this on a credit card. We got to start paying. Thanks.
Okay, Travis.
Travis Pate, lifelong Ogden resident. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. If those of you that had the opportunity to attend the health fair at the Golden Hour Senior Citizen Center, was absolutely phenomenal. And in conjunction with that, the thing that I was really celebrated on and excited for was the fact that after the Marshall White Open House, those storyboards went to the Golden Hour Senior Citizen Center. And so I would encourage that if this needs to be dismantled anytime soon, that portions of it can also go up there. And then also then possibly have another community fair or something else that would include that portion. Because as many of you know, the Marshall White Center, or not the Marshall White Center, has obviously had deferred maintenance. And the Golden Hour Senior Citizen Center had deferred maintenance. And if any of the rest of us do that at home, they call it neglect. And so I'm excited about the new plans for the Marshall White Center. So I want to come back and say that's fantastic. I would encourage, prior to the finalization of the plans, that we very carefully work with Weber State University for their basketball camps and other things to say, are we designing this well? And then if anything else, say it does need 10,000 more square feet, that we simply say, okay, hey, Weber State, would you be willing to help put your name somewhere near this, that we can actually then build it right and build it well? Because if it needs 10,000 more square feet from the get-go in order to help them host basketball camps and help them get back into the neighborhoods that they're committed to, obviously through the downtown Weber State Center and those other types of things, that we actually have that opportunity to celebrate those wonderful things. And so I just, like I said, if there's an opportunity to just continue to be community partners, and then also not just, so to speak, I've heard a lot of tax and spend tonight. The building that Weber State's in received $300,000 of Obama-era funding for a renovation and a facelift. And then Weber State bought the building, and $300,000 of Obama-funded facelift and everything else were torn off. Okay, wait, where's this money? It's so every time there's this pretend cash cow somewhere and we don't put the accountability back to it towards maintenance, everything else, it's the dynamic of just wasting money, wasting great infrastructure. The entire sidewalk in front of the Baptist church was completely removed, and yet it was only put in 10 years ago, and it wasn't cracked. A new street light on Jefferson Avenue was now, one of our historic ones was just torn out, and they put a new one that complements 25th Street corridor. And yet they still haven't fixed the light in 6 years' time. They have a new cage and an entire lamppost they could put down at that end if they chose to. It's not fixed yet, 6 years. And so I think that when we continue to spend money, and I think the funding from anything from BDO instead of bonding for the entire parking terrace, we already have an Ogden City Mall parking terrace that we had to spend a fortune to get the tax to settle in order for us to tear down portions of it. We had to settle that debt. So let's look at our own history, pull up those numbers, and before we reinvest BDO money, just bond the whole amount, not BDO.
Thanks, Travis. Okay. I think that wraps up public comment. Comments from the mayor.
Sure. I'll just kind of reiterate what I talked about a little bit before. I've heard a lot of comments tonight. We've listened to everything everybody's brought to the table. We appreciate everybody being here and expressing your concerns. I do want to address what we talked about with the Make Ogden and the why. Design workshop, more than 4,000 hours into the plan development. City staff, more than 3,500 hours into the planning process. And citizens and community leaders, more than 1,000 hours of working through and supporting the community engagement process. So I take a little bit of offense when I'm being told that we're not listening to our community and we're not working through those things. We have been working on this for 4+ years. And what happens on social media and some of the other rumors or everything else, that's not reflective of the work that's actually being done by a lot of the people that have dedicated themselves to figuring this out and making promises to the community. So we are working on these things. Your voices are heard when you come. We're listening to all that. There are some things we can do. There are some things that we can't do. I would love to have every single road paved and everything else. There are budget issues and other things that we have to prioritize. And I've appreciated your approach as a council to helping set priorities and figure some of that stuff out. I've appreciated our development partners as we look at these things. It's has been said by the legislature a number of times. It's not a Christmas tree. We can't get everything we want under it. We do spend a lot of time and energy and effort, and our staff does, trying to figure out how to address problems and work through that. So just wanted to put that back into context. I mean, that's over 8,000 plus hours of just looking at the Make Ogden plan and what's happening at Union Station. And because somebody says something on social media doesn't mean it's true at all. And I talked to a number of you out there tonight. There's never been a conversation about moving those museums and getting rid of our amazing pieces and our amazing history. So I'll leave it at that. I could address a lot of other things, but I'll just wrap it up with that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Comments from council members?
I have a couple of comments. I wish I had the power to change the format of if I was going to be gone, but I don't think you all would have changed the format regardless if I was here or not. So I wish I had that power. I just have a quick comment. I had a constituent that called or emailed me asking about there's a lot of garbage on 24th Street Viaduct right now, couches and etc. And I think it's probably coming from the transfer station folks. So I don't know what we can do about that. But you know, that is one of the inroads and gateways into our city. So if we can look at that. Or
it's UDOT's road. We have to have permission to go clean that up. And we will talk to UDOT tomorrow.
That'd be great.
And between us, we'll see if we can get it cleaned up.
Yeah, that'd be great. Sounds like there's a lot of crud.
Thanks. Anyone else?
So I have just a couple comments. So I met with staff, administration staff, a couple weeks ago to talk about the property from Teresa. And everything that the staff showed to me, I found to be very, very professional. Chris, Tremia, and Jared Johnson. And I spent a bunch of time talking with them and going through that case, which seems to be pretty complex. It's not that straightforward. But I personally believe that the staff is doing a really a good job with the way they've been handling it. So I want to thank you for that right in the back over there. Then I wanted to ask the administration about the properties from being sold from the school district. I think I probably asked 3 weeks ago, and I think I heard that maybe in a couple of weeks we would have an update. I don't know if there might be an update.
It's on your calendar for us to talk about, but I can't remember when it is.
The 29th, I think.
The 29th.
Okay.
Yeah.
The 29th. Okay. Just so that the people that were here know. And then also just wanted to ask and remind the mayor of a conversation or a request I made, Mayor, about the. Sorry, Mark, can you? Sorry. Not that much, it's fine. About fans that it's on Monroe. I don't know if you remember, we talked about that. It's a fence on Monroe between 12th Street and 7th Street, and the fence has been hit a bunch of times. There's been, I think I've heard at least 3 fatalities in the past several years. There was one that was more recent within a few years. The fence had just been replaced probably the last year, and then someone crashed into it again.
There's been 4 accidents there. We're actually looking and seeing what we can do to make it safer for that individual who lives there. That's being worked on right now, and we're hoping to have something in place soon, whether with the weather, et cetera. But we have done the research. We are working on it.
Okay. Thank you. So I think it's beyond making it safer for the person that lives there, but it's just making it safer for the community and for anyone that drives through that road, because obviously there's something wrong with that road. And you know, probably people are not driving properly too, but I'm sure that's causing most of it. And then what I was told by the gentleman that replaced that fence was that he heard there's some kind of a housing development that is going to happen. There's plans for it below that place. I don't know if you've heard about that or not, but he's just seeing cars falling onto the roofs of homes under there. So
we'll look into that. We haven't heard anything about that.
You haven't?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I bring my big giant head back in?
Oh, yes, please. Yeah, you can lean forward again too if you like.
Fat heads are welcome. Bring it
Yeah.
in. Okay, anyone else?
Well, I was just going to quickly make a comment about the Union Station plans. I've just been meeting a little bit with the staff and understanding a little bit more of the history and everything that's going on there. And I know that in the next couple weeks or so, we might be able to share more specific details. But yeah, I would just be very careful to, you know, throw out theories about what might happen when you all know that we're dedicated to taking care of that building the best way possible, and nothing's going to happen to it. And, you know, there's some great ideas and things that are coming out of it. So we'll be able to share some more later.
Thank you.
Just real quick. A couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, we talked, I believe it was the softball teams that were here, and we talked about the importance of getting our youth involved in recreation and the great lessons that can be learned through being on a team and playing sports and having somewhere to go and something to do. And I appreciate
Steve.
Yeah, Steve Van Wagner and everybody that's part of that this little soccer community that we have here. And I applaud the work that you all do. I applaud the passion. It's great that you can get people to come out here and sit for hours so that they can have 3 minutes to beg and to plead to get more open space. I can't remember one of the coaches' name, but I too, just like, I would love to have my roads all paved, but I would also love to have a huge soccer complex where we could all go and play and have and host tournaments and bring people from all over northern Utah here to showcase this great community and the many youth that participate in youth soccer and love that sport. So I appreciate the work that you do. I hope that we can get something worked out and get more green space. I applaud. Is it Eloise? Okay. I applaud you sitting there so quiet and so polite. I kept thinking, I need to sit still. She's doing a better job than I am. But I applaud the way that you got up and shared your passion for not only the sport, but for green space and for what this city provides. And so I hope that we can continue to look for that. I thank Steve for the for reminding us that we're going to, as we grow, we're going to need more green space. So I appreciate you letting us know that and making us aware of that. I don't know where to start with the gentleman, and again, I can't remember your name that had the incident with the Ogden City Police. I would love to know more about it. I understand there's two sides to every story, and I hope that we can get something worked out, and I hope that there's been a disconnect somewhere and we can get that resolved. I'm sorry that had to happen, or that did happen. So I look forward to speaking with you a little more, and maybe can get some more and see if we can maybe get some more answers for you. And because I do believe that our police officers want to build a relationship of trust within this community, and I think they've done a great job and taken great lengths to accomplish that. So I believe that there's been a disconnect somewhere, and if we can get to the bottom of that, that'd be great. So I'll try to meet with you some more. I can't. I'm like the mayor. I think I'll just leave my comments at that. But thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else?
I just echo and appreciate what's been said already. I think that as council members, we sit here and we listen and don't necessarily respond directly in the public comment section, but we are taking notes, and we do appreciate the effort to be here to share your concerns and thoughts. And yeah, that's just it. So thank you for being here.
Rich?
Got nothing in addition to what I've already said.
Okay. So I'll just say that, we've had a lot on the agenda tonight, but we've had a lot of things come to us tonight. None of them are first time that we've heard any of them. We're being asked to fix and do all of them everywhere, all the time. And we're asked to do it without raising any taxes. And then when we do everything to minimize the amount of tax burden that we need, we're screamed at from raising any taxes. So we are absolutely in a position to fund some of these things. We absolutely can't fund them all. Where we can't fund them all, we're going to have to do some things, using some pretty creative partnerships to make it happen, to be quite honest with you. And so I just wanted to share that, because with youth recreation, there is no topic that I care more about in this city. I share that passion 100%. And I work more on the city program side, but I've had my own kids have been in Ogden soccer and coached by both the coaches that were up here tonight. And I know that impact. I know the impact of the coaches and of the programs and of the green space. And so as we've approached it in the city program side, we can't just buy all the space we need, especially when we've got a lot of space in the city. So we need to actually sit down and talk about how to make this happen, because this opportunities that arise with the school district right now are one way to do it, but there is way more to it and way more options and mechanisms that we need to leverage to do it, including space that's already in this city, that's already owned by public entities, including the school district. Y'all pay taxes in the city, and those taxes, some of it comes to us, not very much. A lot of it goes to the county, and even more goes to the district. So in my view, and what the approach that we've taken, is we need to look at all of the space that we have, see that the same people are paying for the same spaces, and see what we can do to leverage and maximize uses of those spaces. Because we have a usable space challenge. It's not just an access or a space problem. We have an access to usable space problem. And I'm positive there's more space in this town that's already green that we can use, but it's not usable right now, whether it's through lack of an agreement or lack of access or lack of a fee schedule or lack of fees coming in to provide for the uses, lack of staff that can be there to open it and close and clean it. Those are the challenges that we've got. It's not just these 3 parcels. So I'm going to make the commitment that we need to sit down and talk about all that, because there's just a whole lot more to it and a whole lot more options that make a lot more sense for every taxpayer. That's my view, and I'll share more of that one-on-one. So, okay. I think that's it for comments. Motion to adjourn for this meeting. We got 2 more still.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Ritchie, second by Councilmember Chaburka to adjourn. This is a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're adjourned from the council meeting. We'll wait till the recorder is reset, and then we'll start our special redevelopment agency meeting. Meeting of November 15th, 2022. Let the roll call reflect that all board members are present. First item on our agenda is approval of minutes for the regular meeting of June 14th, 2022. Board Member Blair. Sorry.
Yes, I have reviewed those minutes and found them to be accurate, and I would make a motion that we adopt those minutes.
Second.
Motion by Board Member Blair, second by Board Member Heyer to adopt the minutes. This is a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Thanks, Bart. Next item is reports from administration. We'll bring back Laura Lewis to talk to us about our bond parameters resolution. It gets better.
Let's see if that turned out well, right? The movie ended up well.
Okay, so this particular resolution relates to the building authority that you'll be considering to fund the 2 parking structures that we discussed in the work session. Similarly,
Did you mention the building authority resolution or the RDA?
You're in the RDA,
Okay,
but it
thanks.
is a building authority. Oh,
Groundhog that.
Hold the phone. I got too far ahead of myself. I was hoping Groundhog Day would be over for all of it. Okay. I did it again. There we go. Special Redevelopment Agency meeting. There we go. All right. This is the bond parameters. So back to Wonder Block, not to parking yet. Authorizing the issuance and sale of the bonds. The other agreement would help with the sales tax. So the maximum par amount, as we discussed in your work session, $75 million. The maximum maturity was 37 years. Maximum interest rate 6.5%, and the maximum discount was 3%. Again, we will not be able to proceed with the bonds until you have the hearing and adopt documents in January. That will be in substantially final form relative to the bond resolution, the indenture, and all of that. This just allows for publication and the holding of the hearing. Even shorter than before. And thank you for catching me on the building authority language.
If I'm the one catching, you got problems.
It's been a long night.
Okay, thanks. Okay, any questions for Laura?
No questions.
Okay, we'll entertain action.
Chair, I make a motion that we adopt resolution 2022-12, which sets the public hearing for January 10th.
Second.
I have a motion by Board Member Heyer, second by Board Member White, to adopt proposed resolution 2022-12 and set the public hearing for January 10th. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Blair?
Aye.
Board Member Chaburka?
Aye.
Board Member Heyer?
Aye.
Board Member Ritchie?
Aye.
Board Member White?
Aye.
Vice Chair Lopez?
Aye.
Chair Nadolski?
Aye, that passes. Thank you. Hang on to that other one for us. Don't let that one go far.
All right.
Comments from the Executive Director?
Sorry, nothing to add.
She's working on those push-ups over there. Comments from board members? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Board Member Lopez, second by Board Member Heyer to adjourn. This is a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. 2022. Let the roll call reflect that all board member trustees are present. First item is approval of minutes for the meeting of May 10th and June 14th, 2022. Trustee Chaburka.
Yes, Chair, I've reviewed those minutes and they're accurate to my recollection, and I motion to approve them.
Second.
I have a motion by, thank you. Motion by Trustee Chaburka, second by Trustee Blair to adopt the minutes as presented. This is a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Now we're ready for the bond parameters and parking structure for the MBA.
I'm back.
Thanks.
All right, last but not least, the bond parameters for the parking structure under the building authority. This will be to, again, approve the parameters, which we can't go outside those lanes, but won't be finalized until you meet in January. The maximum par amount is $85 million. The maximum rate is 8%. Again, that's higher because of the taxable nature of a portion of those bonds. The maximum number of years is 40 years, and the maximum discount is 3%.
Thank you. Questions for Laura? Okay.
Questions? But I would make a motion to adopt proposed resolution 2022-2 and set a public hearing for January 10th.
Second.
You get it.
We have a motion by Trustee Ritchie, second by Trustee Chaburka, I think it was.
Yeah.
To
Pretty close.
adopt proposed resolution 2022-2 and set the public hearing for January 10th. This is a roll call vote.
Trustee Blair?
Aye.
Trustee Chaburka?
Aye.
Trustee Heyer?
Aye.
Trustee Ritchie?
Aye.
Trustee White?
Aye.
Vice Chair Lopez,
Aye.
Chair Nadolski.
Aye, that passes. Thank you.
And you don't have to see me until after Christmas. Although I always come up and see your Christmas village with my kids, so I might run into you there.
Happy
Thank you.
holidays.
Yep. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Merry Christmas to you.
Thanks, Laura. We appreciate you. Okay, comments from President Caldwell.
I don't want to hear that said ever again. So, no.
Sorry, President
I'm good.
Push Up, my bad. Comments from trustees?
Well, I just have a quick one. Thank God we didn't get rid of the MBA.
Yeah, yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, can you
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion by trustee Ritchie, second by trustee Heyer to adjourn. This is a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thanks.